Hello and welcome to the first episode of the Comics with Friends podcast, the bi-weekly podcast where two best buds get together, read a comic, talk about what they love about the comic, what they didn't like about it, and tell a few jokes along the way. I am your host, Ethan, joined today by my best bud and co-host, Mason. And for our very first episode, we are going to be talking about Batman Year One, written by Frank Miller and drawn by David Mazzucchelli. What's up?
I'm impressed that you nailed that last name because I don't have the capabilities of that.
Yeah, it's a very difficult last name to to pronounce. So I've heard some people pronounce it without the L. So like
Mazzucchelli?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or they say Mazzucchelli. I've also heard that as well.
I mean, if you're going to make it in the business, you got to have an iconic name, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, they are both very prolific writers in the comic book industry. A little bit of history about the book and about the team as well. Frank Miller and David Mazzucchelli actually worked on Daredevil Born Again, which is a very, very famous like story for Daredevil. I believe that is the one where Bullseye kills Daredevil's love interest. I forget her name. I think it's Karen Page. I could be wrong about that.
Well, I mean, from what I know, because I'm the layman here, I mean, like, Elektra is like one of the most iconic of Daredevil's love interest.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely.
But other than that, I don't know. Because in my mind, I only know Karen Page from the Daredevil TV show on Netflix.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I know her from. I know Foggy is actually in the books and everything like that, but I'm not too, other than maybe Spider-Man comic books, this is all almost like an excuse for me to get into the comic book world. So you're going to be explaining a lot to me.
I'm the narrator for you.
Yeah. This is Baldur's Gate 3. You're going to be narrating everything.
Yep. Then I guess, other than that, about the two, artists, basically, because, Frank Miller is an artist in his own right. Frank Miller, before writing Batman Year One, he actually wrote The Dark Knight Returns. I believe Dark Knight Returns came out a year before this. But the big thing that came out before that was Crisis on Infinite Earths. This book exists because of Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Like, you say that as in, like, it's a product of events that happen, or just because he enjoyed writing it so much, he was like, I'm going to write.
So he did not write Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Oh, okay.
Crisis on Infinite Earths was, I believe, Marv Wolfman and George Perez, writer and artist, respectively. No, Batman Year One is a response from DC, the company, in an attempt to update their characters.
Oh, is this kind of like the retcons that they do to like reset?
Correct. Yes. Okay. So Crisis on Infinite Earths, well, it's technically like the first crisis, like the first major crisis, because DC had this huge issue where all of their characters were outdated. Like, they weren't relatable. They also had their they all had their golden age, like, mannerisms and powers, and that just wasn't relating to audiences in 85, because that's when Crisis on Infinite Earths came out, was 1985.
That long ago?
Yeah, that's forever ago.
Jeez. Well, I guess you can say that about some of the art in comics and stuff. Like, I've seen stuff on the internet, like images and things like that, and it's like, it doesn't look like it came out in 85. It looks like it came out a little later than that.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I'll say Crisis to some extent, and I would say Dark Knight Returns and Year One were kind of like the inspiration for updating art just a little bit, making it more mature. Because this is before like Spawn and Image and everything. Because Image didn't come into being until 90s.
See, that's the type of stuff that I like.
Yeah. But yeah, no, this story was a response to Crisis on Infinite Earths, because they had gone in and they had changed many characters' origin stories. Like Superman, Wonder Woman, two of the like Trinity, they had almost completely changed. They updated it. Obviously, they updated Superman because the Superman movies were out, the Christopher Reeves movies, and they wanted to kind of align that more with him.
Oh, okay.
One of the few characters who got an update but wasn't fully retconned was Batman.
So is that this then?
That's what that is.
Yeah.
They essentially DC editorial went to Frank Miller and said, "Hey, we want you to write and draw Batman Year One. We want you to tell his origin story. We don't want you to change it, but we want you to mature it, expand upon it."
Well, I think he achieved the maturity level.
Yeah.
The overall like atmosphere that it gives off is that Gotham is very much fucked.
Yeah. Now, I'll go ahead and say this right off the bat. I love the book.
Oh, I enjoyed it thoroughly.
Yeah.
You know,
like you're not going to sit here and listen to two guys talk about Batman Year One and we shitting on it the whole time. Now there are some Batman stories that we can shit on, but that comes at a later time.
I'm sure I will still thoroughly enjoy them, just not in the positive way that I enjoyed this.
Right.
Though there were some moments in this that we've discussed prior that I was like, oh my word.
Yeah. So yeah, they approached him and they actually, when I was doing research for this story, like from out of the pages, basically, I didn't know this at first, but Frank Miller, when he had done The Dark Knight Returns, which I don't think you've read Dark Knight Returns, but I think you've watched the animated movies.
Yes, I've watched the animated movies part because it's two parts.
It's a two-part,
so 1 and 2.
Yeah. When he made that, DC actually had him sign a contract saying, "Hey, you can tell this story about Batman in his 50s, 60s, however old he is in that movie.
Dying.
Retired. But if you do that, you have to write and draw, or at least write a Batman origin story for us."
I mean, that sounds like a good deal.
Yeah. And
it's also cool because you're doing the beginning of his Batman life
and the
ending of it.
Which what adds another cool layer to it. Now, I say cool just because it's interesting from an outsider perspective, but as a reader, it's hot garbage. This not only is the in-canon origin story for Batman, it's also the origin story of Frank Miller's Batman. Because Frank Miller's Batman takes place in an alternate reality, or on a different
so
Earth.
It matches up.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It's cool just because this one story spawns two completely different Batmen.
Well, I mean, we can get into the whole essentially multiverse, different dimensions, parallel timelines, all that stuff. But like the basic science is there's always like a moment where the timeline splits. So like technically you could have a same origin story for two different times.
And I'll tell you where the timeline splits. Dark Victory and fucking Batman and Robin, Boy Wonder, All-Star, whatever you want to call it, because that story is hot garbage.
I'll take your word on it.
That's where the famous "I'm the goddamn Batman" line comes from.
Oh, okay.
Yep, that story.
All right.
That story. We'll do it one day.
That should be a great book just on that line by itself.
You have no idea. I cannot wait for you to read it. You have no idea how absolutely batshit crazy that story is.
I love shit like that. I like things taking left turns and being wild and things like that.
So back to Batman Year One, not getting sidetracked too much. You're gonna get that a lot in this. We're gonna get on side tangents.
That's okay.
So yes, they wanted Frank Miller to update the Batman origin, but keep it the same.
Yeah,
they wanted to keep the core elements of Bruce is a nebulous 8-year-old, 10-year-old boy. He goes to the movie theater one day. His parents get killed. He trains. He becomes Batman. They wanted that to stay the same. And Frank Miller was like, cool, that's the shit I find boring. So I'm going to leave it the same. I'm going to add my own stuff in there.
I can tell he finds that shit boring because it's
barely touched upon.
I think it's mentioned slightly in the beginning that he's coming back.
Yep.
And that's it. Yep. And never talked about again or anything.
Nope. And you don't even really see the Waynes get murdered. I think you see like 1-page flashback, and then there's a cover of child Bruce Wayne sitting on the ground.
Yeah. Which I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Like, because Batman's one of those characters similar to, like, if you go to Marvel, Spider-Man, like a lot of the mainstay heroes, especially nowadays. Like, probably back in the day, Iron Man, not so much, but now that the Marvel movies have come out, you know, everyone knows Superman's origin story. Yeah. And it's that argument of like, well, these characters are so iconic. We already know these origin stories. It's like, why do we have to keep going over the same thing? So I wasn't like, oh man, I
really wanted to see Batman's parents die.
I really wanted to see his parents die, and that crying sad child, man, that was my favorite part. You know.
So Frank Miller, he agreed to it. I think almost instantly he agreed to it, but he had one stipulation: he was not going to draw it because he wanted to put all of his effort into the writing of the story. And he actually went to coworker and friend David Mazzucchelli, and he said, "Hey, I want this guy to write it or draw it." And DC was like, "Yeah, Mazzucchelli's awesome. His artwork's great. It is great. I think it's the best part of the story."
I have my own thoughts on it.
Yeah. That's going to be the fun part, is when we get into some of these stories and it's like, "Hey, we're going to read X-Men from the 60s."
Yeah.
And you're going to look at it and be like, "I can't read this."
That's not true, because when I read Spider-Man all the way up to like issue 7 something, like 700 something, I started classic Spider-Man 60s, you know, early. Don't get me wrong, it was rough. I was like, these panels,
they're not positioned well.
It's kind of hard to stay interested, but I'm a huge Spider-Man fan, so I was like, I'm going to tough it out because I know eventually I'm going to get to the good stuff. And also, I can't say I'm a Spider-Man fan and then be like, yeah, I didn't read from the beginning. Not that you have to do that, but like for my own personal ego.
So yeah, they worked on this. This came out in February of 87, and finished in May of 87. So it's not that long.
No.
And this all took place in the Batman comics. Because at the time, I think there was like 4 imprints for Batman. I think it was Batman, Detective Comics, Shadow of the Bat, and Legends of the Dark Knight, which, of course, we'll be talking about stories from all of those. Just in the middle of your regularly scheduled Batman 404 to 407, just the story stopped. The team, the artist and writer that you were reading left. Frank Miller and David Mazzucchelli came in, and they just did their thing. They told this 4-part origin story and then left.
And it's been iconic ever since.
Yeah, it's the origin.
I mean,
what's crazy is they tried to change this during New 52.
Well, isn't New 52, from what I know, not well received?
It is commercially a success. It is critically a failure.
Okay.
It sold like gangbusters. Like, it is.
But then everyone read it and was like, this is
Everyone read it and went, this isn't what I want to read. Superman was kind of like the big person who really got fucked out of that.
I mean, Superman's been getting fucked out of a lot of things these days.
Trust me, I know.
Which is a whole nother topic on its own.
It makes me very sad.
What if he was evil?
We'll do Injustice.
Yeah.
Because there is the Injustice comics are awesome.
They are. I've read those actually. So
we'll
get there. Got to avoid the side tangents. We're talking about Batman Year One.
Yeah. So they tried to change this with New 52 with Scott Snyder, who did the Court of Owls storyline. Amazing storyline. I think that's probably top 5, in my opinion, best Batman stories. Yeah. But Batman's more of a detective in that. They tried to change it with Year Zero, and they made Riddler the main villain, and then they incorporated the Red Hood. Not Jason Todd Red Hood, but Joker Red Hood. Not a lot of people liked it, but it is technically canon. So both Batman Year One and Year Zero are both canon.
Yeah.
Which is weird.
I mean, there's one thing about comics, especially superhero comics. The timeline stuff and like retcons and everything, I know it makes a lot of things like super wonky, which I think it's kind of like when you're a successful superhero comic, you have to do things. So you're basically suffering from your own success.
That is exactly what it is.
You know, and it sucks because then now you're just suffering and you're not succeeding.
Yes.
You know,
that is the issue that these comic book publishers have. A lot of comic book publishers have these days is, oh God, there's so much stuff. We got to fix it. Why? Why do you have to fix it? Just because you have a lot of something doesn't mean it's broken.
Well, I mean, just in general, like at a certain point when you're writing, you're going to get to a point where, I mean, you see it in TV shows and stuff all the time when you get to long running shows and later seasons, you know, it's like, man, they're running out of ideas.
That I could understand that. I mean, look no further than Dark Knight's Metal.
Yeah.
Like, which is an event that happened recently within the past 5 years or so. We will also talk about that. That story is insane. The first Dark Knight's Metal, great. The second Dark Knight's Metal, Dark Knight's Death Metal, sucks. Awful. We'll talk about that later. So I think we've talked enough about the conception of Batman Year One. Again, we've already established and said that we love this story.
Yeah. Overall, 2 thumbs up.
Yeah, overall 2 thumbs up. So this story opens with Jim Gordon entering Gotham on the train. And he gives this really nice monologue about how he already hates this city.
Yeah.
He's only been here for maybe an hour and he already hates it. He hates the fact that he took the job. He hates the fact that he brought his wife, Barbara, to Gotham.
Yeah.
And then he also reveals, like, this is no place for us to raise our unborn child.
Yeah. And insinuating, like, Barbara, like, Batgirl, all that stuff, like, beginnings of that.
So that's not Barbara.
Right.
That's
but
James.
Him starting his family.
Yeah. Yeah, that's James.
Yeah, and he's like, I'm glad she flew.
Yes.
Which I'm going to bring up. Aspect I liked of that first couple pages is that duality of, you know, Jim's like, I'm so glad Barbara flew. Didn't have to be in the thick of it and everything like that. And then immediately goes to Bruce on a plane and he's like, man, I should have taken the bus. And
I'm a fucking loser. I should have taken the goddamn train.
Yeah, like
I've already failed my first mission.
Just that aspect of like someone who has the ability to be above the problems of Gotham all the time is wanting to be in the thick of it, obviously because he's got his issues.
Yeah.
You know, but and then you have Jim who's like, I'm in the thick of this stuff all the time and he's the jaded cop.
Yeah.
You know, he's still young, but he's already the jaded cop. I mean, obviously once in the later story you realize why he's kind of jaded and stuff like that.
A lot of stuff happens to him.
Yeah, and it was interesting for me, again, as like the layman in comics, I only really, as far as especially DC, congested like Batman and stuff and Superman and all of those things like that through like games and movies and stuff like that. Obviously a lot of movies, games and stuff, they depict Jim Gordon as his older, you know, like the Arkham games.
Yeah.
He's
been doing it.
Yeah, he's been doing it forever.
Yeah.
And him and Batman have always already had this relationship and stuff like that. And that's why I liked Robert Pattinson's Batman movie.
You know, it's funny.
What?
Sorry. I was going to say this. I watched The Batman not once, but twice this week for this story.
Dude, I've in total, I've watched that movie like at least 10 times.
Now, I've only seen it 3 times. The first time in theaters, because Nicole and I went to go see
Yeah, I saw it in theaters.
In theaters, yeah, we went to go to the AMC because it was opening night and it was the big screen, really big, nice screen. And then I had not watched it until this week because I was like, oh, the Batman takes inspiration from both Batman Year One and the Long Halloween. So I was like, I probably need to watch that for this. And let me tell you, that movie is just so good.
It's great. It's really great. But again, I feel like as far as like media for like heroes and stuff, we always go into these trends. You know, like right now, like I kind of mentioned earlier, Superman's in this "what if he was evil" trend, and I think now we're kind of getting into this maybe. I think Robert Pattinson's the Batman, and there's also been some other things that it's like, okay, let's get the early Batman. We've seen plenty of the veteran Batman. Let's get the early Batman, see him not as almost perfect. Yeah. You know, which is one of my gripes about as Batman as a character. And I don't know if it's from just interacting with the Batman community, like from the internet and stuff like that, where it's like, you know, the meme, give Batman prep time. He's
he's the contingency king.
Yeah. And it's just like, it's super interesting. I mean, we've kind of gone off topic, but to sum up, the Batman was really good. Yeah. And
maybe one day we'll talk about it.
We'll talk about it, but back to the book. But yeah, that duality of, you know, Bruce being in the jet, Jim wanting to be in the air, not have to drive through the city and stuff. Yeah. I thought that was super, super interesting.
I do too, and it kind of inadvertently establishes the relationship that Jim Gordon and Bruce Wayne will have, not necessarily Jim Gordon and Batman. Which, in my notes at least, I differentiate between Bruce and Batman in my notes because they are so different storytelling wise when they are faced with, you know, interaction.
I think I agree, but I also disagree because in what is it? Chapter 2, I'm pretty sure, is when he's, you know, out and about, not quite Batman yet.
That's chapter 1.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, that's the second half of chapter 1.
Yeah, it's the end of chapter 1. But yeah, that whole, like, that's still, in my mind at least, that's still like Batman, but he just doesn't have the get up yet. And
I agree with that. Yeah, this story does. I will correct myself. Yes, this story does kind of blur the line between Batman Bruce Wayne because Bruce Wayne hasn't necessarily found a way to make them coexist. Yeah. He is just kind of always Batman.
Well, I mean, at the end of chapter 1, he literally, you know, that they have that moment of like, I need to be a symbol. Yeah. You know?
So yeah, both Jim and Bruce get off of their respective transports. Jim is met by Detective Flass, who is this big, tall, blonde, handsome detective who is 110% corrupt. He does not hide it.
Oh, yeah. No. He's definitely corrupt because he's driving the fucking cop car with a beer in there.
Yeah. So he is met by Detective Flass while Bruce is greeted by Alfred and the paparazzi. Yeah. You know, and they berate him with like, you know, where have you been? Oh, the Prince of Gotham. He's been gone for 10 years or however, because Bruce is 25 in this.
Yeah.
So he's been gone for a while, at least 10 years.
I mean, to bring up, I felt that the duality thing was a major theme until the end of chapter 1, when they kind of finally like commingle, Jim and Bruce, because like in that moment, you know, Bruce is the center of everyone's attention and coming back to the city. Jim's coming into the city and he's just another schmuck.
He's nobody.
Yeah, he's no one's really paying attention to him or anything like that, except for obviously the guy there to pick him up, Flass picking him up there. And, you know, I just think I just love themes and like writing constructs like that where it's like,
yeah. And that cool. What you just mentioned comes into play later.
Yeah.
In chapter 2 and chapter 3, which I love, and we'll talk about it when we get there. So yeah, they're both met by their respective, I guess, partners. Flash shows Jim around the city. Mm-hmm. You know, takes him around to different parts. Keeps calling him Jimmy. Jim hates it.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm older than you. Don't call me Jimmy. You call me, you know, James or Jim or Gordon. One of those. Eventually, they come across these. What's the best way to put it? They're not vagrants. They just look like people who are hanging out. Not necessarily doing anything illegal.
Loiterers.
Yeah. Like loiterers.
It's like the Gotham's like, hey, here's some random just thugs to deal with or whatever, you know.
Right. They
miscreants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Flash gets out. He's like, hey, you know, I don't remember the guy's name, but he goes up to this guy, says, you know, you're causing trouble again. He starts beating on him. He gets back in the car.
Like really
beating on him. He gets back in the car, and Jim Gordon's like, man, you really beat the shit out of that guy.
I'm pretty sure that's like police brutality.
Yeah, that is police brutality right there. And he says, oh, he had a knife. And Jim takes the knife and he pulls it out, and it's a comb.
Yeah.
And he says, it was a comb, Flash. And he goes, I'm only human, Jimmy.
Yeah.
And then he takes him to Loeb, Commissioner Loeb, who is a corrupt cop, of course.
Yeah, I mean, he's the center of it.
Yeah. The theme with this is that the Gotham Central, you know, police department is corrupt through and through. And Jim is like the one beacon of honesty in it.
I will say the like Gotham PD in this, to me, was shown in a whole new light. Because I'm not talking just like, oh, we take bribes. This was like straight up, they are a gang that just are government sanctioned.
Yeah, they're like mercenaries.
Yeah. To me, because again, digesting Batman and stuff through other media, it's like, yeah, I take a little on the side, you know.
Right.
You know, I'm going to look the other way and stuff. No, these guys straight up were like, yeah, we're the gang of the blue, and yeah, pay me enough, I'll go kill this guy for you or whatever, you know. Like it was, I was like, holy shit. Like they are not, I need to read more Batman comics because they are not pulling punches on this.
I'll say, like, this is from the stories that I've read, this is one of the few stories that have the PD like that.
Yeah.
GCPD. They, in most stories, just kind of put up with Batman.
Yeah.
And Jim is like the only one that really gets any like character.
He's carrying that whole department
on his back.
On his back.
Yeah. That's why he smokes so much. So yeah, he takes Jim to Commissioner Loeb, and Commissioner Loeb is like this noir style cop who is really into like pop culture stuff. Because if you looked at his office, he has like a Mickey Mouse phone and like a bird that, like, you know, one of those birds that like dip into the water.
I think the impression I got from Loeb was like he's the guy, he wants the attention on him and to be like this powerful figure and stuff. So he's putting on the face of, like, you know, it's the typical, I'm the figurehead, but I don't want them to know my dirty dealings. They know my dirty dealings. They're just not going to, like, we're not going to publicize it and things like that. To me, that's what it was more like. I think just the pop culture references were more just like, hey, reader.
Yeah, you just give him a little.
Yeah, give him a little personality.
Yeah. Which Frank Miller does a really good job at that, where the characters he wants you to focus on are the characters that have personality.
Yeah. I mean, because what good would it do? Every guy you see on a panel, it's like trying to give them the most person. I feel like just as a logistic, like, I'm going to draw this panel, that would be ridiculous to do.
Now, I will say one thing that Frank Miller does, and I kind of noticed it when the first time I read the story a long time ago, but I really noticed it this time. Is the way that dialogue is written, where it's like sentence fragments.
Yeah.
And like it's almost like you're jumping in halfway through a sentence whenever somebody talks, which bothers me just a tad bit. But I understand that it's kind of like a keep the information to a minimum, like a digestible minimum.
I noticed it, but at the same time, with the way I read, it kind of didn't bother me at all because I'm kind of a skimmer. Like, it's not that I'm not reading it. It's just like, okay, I skim through the dialogue, somewhat taking in the art and the panel and stuff. And then after I'm done reading the page, then I'll look at it in its entirety. So like for me, I'm like, okay, dialogue, this is what they're saying. Cool. All right, now take in the whole panel and everything like that.
See, for me, I'll read the panel and then I'll just stare at the artwork for a little bit. And in my head, I'm imagining what it's like in motion. Yeah. And that's what I do. That's why it takes me so long to read comics.
I mean, whenever I'm like taking in the panel, it's like, yeah, like I'm looking at the art and stuff. And that's usually when I notice like smaller details and things like that. But like I need to get through the dialogue first before I can like focus on everything else. Cause I'll go cross-eyed if I try and read and do all that.
Yeah.
My pea brain won't survive that.
Right. So he gets introduced to Flass. He gets introduced to Loeb. Bruce kind of spends his first, few days, few weeks at Wayne Manor kicking trees.
I mean, like
he's kicking trees.
He's hyping himself up.
He's hyping himself up, kicking trees, punching bricks. Yeah. He's just beating the shit out of
Here's the thing. He's hyping himself up. Alfred's there as the wise mentor. He's not a hype man, because he's constantly telling Bruce, like, hey, you should take it easy, things like that. Yeah. Bruce didn't want that kind of energy around him, so he's out there enacting violence on the wildlife to get himself ready to go into the city and punch a dude in the face.
Yeah, get ready. You're going to fight a big-ass tree, Batman.
It was all prep work for Poison Ivy.
Hey,
that's what it was. He's
only like 5 years before she becomes a villain.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'll say that's canon. That is a canon event.
That's my head canon.
That's a canon event right there.
Whenever he first fights Poison Ivy, he's like hanging in a tree or something, and he has a flashback to when he was kicking trees in Wayne Manor.
I kicked that tree in half. I can do it. I can do it again.
This is my prep time. I'm Batman.
I've been prepping for 5 years.
Yeah,
I knew you were going to become Poison Ivy. So he's sitting around kicking trees, and at the same time, Flass is having these private conversations with Commissioner Loeb, basically saying, hey, Jim's here. I've already talked to him, but he doesn't play ball.
Yeah, he's not one of us.
He's not on the take.
Yeah.
And he talks about how Jim's a lieutenant in this story. Yeah. And I don't know a lot about law enforcement and how their structure works. Obviously, I'm just a guy. But from what Flass says, I guess a lieutenant is a very high-ranking position in law enforcement because Jim suspends people from doing shady stuff.
Yeah, he's an officer.
Yeah,
because jumping ahead a little bit, he does end up getting promoted to captain.
Yeah, it's at the very end.
Yeah, and then I'm pretty sure from captain he goes to commissioner.
Yeah.
So if just from that, he's not far from the top of the totem pole. Yeah. Which also I think that's just a pop culture media thing. When someone hears and they're not familiar with chain of command stuff, when they hear, sergeant or lieutenant or captain, they get those ranks and titles from just pop culture and media in general kind of resonate with the reader, like, oh, he's someone with command or something.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is.
It's essentially, it's just a narrative device for him. So Flass is telling Loeb, Like, Jim does not play ball. He's not one of us. He never will play ball. And Loeb essentially tells Flass, okay, make an example of him.
Yeah.
Make him play ball. Then we cut to a random morning. Jim's waking up. He goes to their car garage because they live in an apartment in Gotham, and they have like a public garage area. And Jim's getting ready to leave, and then he is met by masked goons, essentially. And in my notes here, I have in quotes that Jim gets jumped, and they beat the ever-living shit out of him. Oh. Quote, Jim will remember this.
Yeah. And he does.
Oh, he does. He remembers.
No, I actually really liked that because I think a lot of stories, they have this tendency to where, like, because they mention that was a Green Beret.
Yeah.
You know?
Which is cool. They don't normally bring that up.
Which was new information for me because, again, I'm a light reader.
That is retconned.
Oh, it has been?
No, as in, this is what established it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he was just a dude before.
Yeah.
And this,
But it adds some weight to him, you know? Because, like, I guess if you're going to hang with Batman, you need to have some kind of experience. Yeah. But even still, because, I mean, this has been out for years.
Yeah, decades.
You know, and for me as a light reader, it was new for me. And I was like, oh, like that just makes sense. You know, it explains so much of why, again, Jim Gordon can hang with the big boys a little bit, you know?
And there's actually, this is going to be a very quick tangent. There is a story during the New 52. It's like the tail end of the New 52, right before Rebirth, where something happens to Batman. I'm not going to spoil it because I want you to read it because I think it's a very good story. Something happens to Batman and Jim becomes Batman.
That's dope.
And he gets a mech suit that he can get into and fight people. It's like a giant mech suit.
So it's like an actual, not like some like nanotech shit.
No.
It's like an actual mech.
Batman built it for Jim.
Oh, that's dope.
In the event that something happens to him, Jim can be Batman until a new Batman is found.
Okay. Or Jim could just be Batman.
Well, I think at that time, Jim was diagnosed with cancer. So like
here for a good time, not a long time. But yeah, no, that was super cool. But what I was getting at was like, you know, normally in media, if someone's like, yeah, I was a Green Beret, I was a Ranger, you know, they make them like this super deadly individual.
Yeah.
Jim got his ass handed to him, you know. He puts up a fight at first.
Yeah, the first couple of dudes.
Yeah, but then they just, like you said, beat the ever living shit out of him, dude.
So he gets the shit beat out of him. Jim will remember this.
Yep.
And he just goes to work. He just goes to work. Like, he doesn't go to the hospital. He doesn't go back home, like, to his wife. He just goes to work, and he's like, yep, okay. Because he while he's getting beat on, they're laughing, and one of the men laughing, he recognizes as Flass.
Yep.
He's like, I know that laugh, because they're partners, technically.
Which is crazy detective cop ability.
Yeah. This is the most detective Jim has been
in a long time.
Now, he doesn't necessarily do detective work in this story, but he's very perceptive. He's a very perceptive person.
I did notice that there wasn't a whole lot of detective work. It almost seemed a lot more like beat cop.
That's essentially what it was.
Which I think they did to kind of reinforce the city.
Yeah.
To like really make Gotham its own character.
Yeah.
To like show how fucked up this place is, you know. Take a tour.
Yeah. Yeah, I noticed that as well. So we cut to Bruce, back to Bruce's perspective of everything, which, let me just tell you, I love that aspect of the story where you kind of get two sides of the same coin with them. Mm-hmm. Where Jim is a cop who's just trying to do the right thing and follow all the rules, while Bruce is just trying to be a symbol. He doesn't know what kind of symbol yet, and he determines that he needs to break all the rules to do the right thing. Mm-hmm. And I love that. That's awesome.
Which then also counter, like, that whole philosophy of, like, I'm going to break all the rules is almost an antithesis to what Batman, eventually upholds.
Ends up becoming when he joins the Justice League.
Yeah.
So Bruce, he's getting ready. He's putting on like a disguise because he determines that, like, I have waited too long. I'm already 10 years in. I need to go out and see the enemy face to face.
He just really needs to punch someone.
Yeah. And that's kind of interesting where, like, you can tell this is early Batman because the way he talks about criminals
like they're less than nothing.
Yeah, they're like beneath him. They're not human.
Yeah, they're scum.
Which is a very, very different way that Batman thinks later on. In his later career stories, basically.
I mean, like, bring up the Batman again. That's the same kind of, not exactly the same realization he comes to by the end of the movie, but it's of a similar vein, because he was calling himself I'm Vengeance because that's what he was all about. And then at the end, he realized, oh, like, I can't just be about enacting pain, on these criminals as much as I don't like them. I need to be for the people.
Right.
And so that is cool.
Yeah, I agree. So he gets his disguise. He puts the scar on because this is kind of like a proto Matches Malone. Matches Malone is Bruce Wayne's criminal alter ego that he uses to spy on, like, the Penguin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. This is proto Matches Malone.
What a name.
I know, right? Well, it's because he chews on a match. He chews on a match, and so he calls himself Matches Malone.
They were like, what's the edgiest thing I can have this identity do? Hey, he could have a toothpick in his mouth. No.
He chews on fucking matches. So Bruce goes to the East Side, which is like one of the most criminal-ridden areas of Gotham. It's basically like the red light district. It's where all the prostitutes hang out.
Yep.
And he is met by Holly, who is a huge Batman character. She plays heavily into Catwoman's mythology.
One of my favorite parts of the whole book coming up.
He meets Holly, and Holly's like, "Hey, mister, you're looking for a good time, blah, blah, blah." And
which she is a
child. Kid. She is a child.
Which, again, brings back how fucked up this city is that they're painting it.
Well, it also just shows, like, the level of maturity they put into the book, where they were, this was basically them saying, like, kids can read our comics. Adults should read our comics.
Yeah.
That was essentially what they were saying.
Again, like, I don't think you have many superhero comics. I mean, again, this is older. So, sensibilities of modern times aren't necessarily
very different,
there. Obviously, I don't read a whole lot of comics, so I could be wrong. But I don't think, having stuff like that, unless you're doing something like maybe The Punisher or, a darker character like Spawn from Image and stuff like that, they don't really touch on topics like that. Again, I could be wrong.
No, you're 100% correct, because I believe this is the tail end of the Comics Code Authority.
Oh,
the Comics Code Authority, I don't know if you know about it.
No.
Almost every hero followed this, even Punisher.
Oh, wow.
Where essentially it was a board of people who essentially said that children read comic books. They're the only ones that read comic books. If your book is not appropriate
for the kids,
we will not put our stamp of approval on it, and parents will basically, it's like how on CDs when we were growing up, they had parental advisory.
I mean, or games E for everyone.
E for everyone. And that was essentially what the Comics Code Authority was. It was the
comic book version of ESRB, that kind of shit.
Yeah. And publishers were afraid that parents weren't going to buy their books. And then we started getting into the late 80s. Again, this is still a little bit before Image, but Image will be the ones that basically kill the Comics Code Authority.
Good on them.
Yeah.
I could get into Image. But go ahead.
they essentially looked at the Comics Code Authority and said, fuck you.
Yeah.
We're just going to make Batman. Because The Dark Knight came out, and that was not Comics Code.
Yeah.
And it sold great. It is one of the most beloved Batman stories of all time. And they were like, oh, we kind of don't need them.
Yeah.
And so they made Batman Year One.
Also because they made the assumption that, I mean, you still even hear it today with some, people, or it's like games. Oh, you're not a real adult if you play video games and things like that. They made the assumption that only kids read comics.
Yeah.
They were wrong.
Yeah, they're 100%. Yeah. So Bruce goes to the east side. Holly is like, what you want? I'm here.
Yeah.
And then Holly's pimp comes in and says, do not touch that dude. He is 100% a cop. Get away from him.
Yeah.
And,
which is hilarious because he's like, I'm going to put the scar on.
Yeah.
And they're like, nope, that's the 5-0 right there.
It's just like you can tell Bruce is new at this because he doesn't know how to act like a criminal.
But not matches.
Not matches.
Not matches.
Matches is a criminal.
He's a professional.
He is. So Bruce looks at the guy and says, like, no, I'm not a cop. What makes you think I'm a cop? And the pimp's just looking at him like, really?
What is it telling me?
Really? And then Bruce kind of has this inner monologue with himself, like, hey, don't push this dude. He's crazy. He's a pimp. He's going to hurt you. But I just can't help myself. And he just beats the shit out of this fucking pimp.
Yeah.
He beats the shit out of him.
And then
Holly
stabs him.
Holly fucking runs up and stabs Bruce Wayne in the fucking leg. And then Bruce turns and he just fucking donkey punches Holly.
Out of nowhere, Selina's like, Holly.
Yeah.
My favorite part. There's 2 parts of this book. One later, which we've discussed before, so you already know what I'm. Yeah. But I genuinely thought that, like, oh, we're gonna have like a little fight, and it's gonna be like, haha, Batman, Catwoman,
the proto.
She throws a kick. He blocks and just mollywops Selina Kyle. And then you don't see her.
She's gone for like almost all up until like chapter 3.
Yeah.
Like the end of chapter 3.
He knocked her out of the story. He hit her so hard.
And it's really funny too, because she like shows up and the first thing she does is fucking hiss at him. And Bruce is like, what the fuck am I looking at? He's like, who the hell is this bald ass bitch?
I wasn't, for the level of seriousness that we were getting. I mean, obviously they weren't doing it to be funny.
No, but it was funny.
It was, it just was so funny to me because it's like serious. And just a single panel of him punching Selina Kyle.
In the goddamn jaw.
Yeah, like fucking Conor McGregor just knocking her out. And it took me out so much.
That scene, it's funny, but it's also like cool just to see Bruce like beat on some people. Granted,
tears.
He's kind of beating on the wrong kind of people.
Yeah. And then like to kind of like get back into the seriousness of the scene though, but that part was so funny to me. But I had in my notes that I was like, okay, because we're being shown that. Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty sure we were also showing, we had just seen, Jim get the shit beat out of him.
Yeah.
But so they're both getting the shit beat out of each other essentially because he's getting stabbed. The people are swarming Bruce on the streets, and you can see Bruce freaking out.
Oh yeah, he's like,
he's not ready for it.
No.
But Jim, he's getting the shit beat out of him, and he's staying completely calm and collected.
Yeah.
I was like, that is so interesting to me.
Yeah. I think, and they kind of play on this a little bit later on in the story, and I don't think it really comes up ever again, where during this story, we see Bruce and Jim both get the shit beat out of them. Mm-hmm. The difference is that Bruce has nothing to fight for. Mm-hmm. He just wants vengeance. He just wants to beat on people.
He's angry.
Yeah. And so he freaks out at the first sign of like, I'm failing. Jim has a wife and unborn son. Or at the time, just unborn child. Yeah. He doesn't know if
he wants to live.
Yeah. And so he's like, I have to keep going.
Yeah.
And I think that's really cool that like Jim kind of sets the example that Batman will follow.
Yeah. It's... And I think it also is like one of the main reasons why they work so well together too.
Oh, yeah.
In the future.
Oh yeah.
You know, because they are almost this. Well, at least Bruce becomes like Jim because Jim is an example. And I also do love the fact that this comic, this book, is almost as much as a Jim Gordon origin story as it is a Bruce Wayne Batman origin
to
story.
me, Jim is the main character.
Yeah,
like Bruce is just kind of like a force of nature.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
I would agree.
So Bruce beats the shit out of these women and pimp, and the police show up, and they get out of their car. Bruce goes, "Hold up," and they fucking shoot him.
Yeah,
they just shoot him right in the fucking stomach.
I was like, man,
they shoot him, and one of the cops go, "Hey, he wasn't moving," and the other cop goes, "Yeah, he was gonna run." Just like, yeah, but like he was gonna run.
Oh my god, dude.
I just went ahead and took him out.
It's shit like that it's like, I know they're not trying to be funny, but it's just so out of pocket that it's like, holy shit.
So they shoot him. Yeah. They haul Bruce's ass off.
Yep.
Now I will say, I don't know if I mentioned this. This does not happen on the same day that Jim gets beat up.
No,
this is. I think this is like a couple of days later.
Yeah, it's not the same time. They're very close.
They're very close
in the book.
Yeah, to kind of mirror each other.
Yeah.
Bruce is on the way to the police station, and one of the cops is like, "Hey, he's gonna die. We need to take him to the hospital." And the cop that shot him is like, "Who cares? He's just some thug. If he dies in my car, oh well."
Yeah.
And then Bruce is like, "You should probably pull over." And they're like, "What are you talking about, asshole?" And then he just beats the shit out of them. He just beats the shit out of two cops.
Right now, Bruce's answer
is beating the shit out of
everything is just throwing hands.
There is no negotiation.
This is
with him.
This is Bruce standing on business. You know,
he's
no questions. He don't care who you are.
He's just an asshole.
Yeah. Hey, at least he dishes them out equally to everybody.
He does. Whether you're Carmine Falcone or the goddamn Joker.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if you've ever seen this. It's like this clip from this movie or whatever, and it's this dude. He's like at a birthday party or whatever, and he starts just slapping everyone.
Oh, I have seen that. Yeah,
that's Bruce.
That is.
He's
Bruce,
just walking up to everyone and throwing hands.
Yeah. So he tells them like, "You should pull over." Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
They call him a wacko. He beats the shit out of them. They crash the car into like a semi that's carrying gasoline. Bruce is about to leave. He's barely holding on.
Yeah.
He's like, oh fuck. And then he looks back at the cop car and he's like, they probably have families. Yeah. And so he pulls them out. I like that because it's kind of like the first inkling of like, Bruce is an asshole. He just beats on people, but you can still kind of see that he has like a code.
Yeah.
That he won't kill. I like that. It's kind of like a proto, like no kill.
Yeah. And I think it also is a big moment for him because it's kind of like that timeline point, right? Of different, multiverse or whatever. But it's that moment where it's like he could become this type of hero or this type of hero.
Yeah.
And he chose to be the kind that doesn't kill and everything like that. And I think that inadvertently affects that he becomes a hero that rather like he may use fear as a weapon, but he's all about hope. Right?
Yeah.
He wants the people of Gotham to have hope. I think if he went the other way and let those cops die, he would have been obviously more like Red Hood or something like that.
Azrael.
Yeah, exactly. Burn the whole fucking city to the ground.
Yeah.
So
he saves those cops. He finds his car and he starts to drive back to the manor. Now he is still bleeding out at this point.
Yeah.
And it's cool because at this moment we catch up with Jim and he's driving. It's like super late at night. And he almost gets hit by a car that's driving on the wrong side of the road, and that's Bruce Wayne.
Yep.
And he's like,
that passing.
He says like, that was Bruce Wayne's car. What the hell? I should turn around and give him a ticket, but I'm on a mission.
Yeah.
And he goes to this house and he just sits there and waits. And he starts seeing cops leave, and he waits for Flash to leave.
Yep.
And Flash, he's drunk. He stumbles out. Flask leaves. He tails him for a little bit, and then he just fucking runs him off the road an asshole.
Yeah, but then he also like beats the shit out of him.
He does because he gets out of the car. He has a bat because they beat him with bats.
Yep.
He has a bat. Flask gets out, and Jim's looking at him. He's like, he's double my size. He's younger than me. He's more muscular than I am.
Yeah.
He's fresh out of the Green Beret training stuff. He needs a handicap, and he tosses him the bat, and then he beats the shit out of Flask, de-dresses the man, and then chains him to a fucking tree.
Dude, that was a definite, like, when he's like, he needs a handicap.
Yeah.
And throws him the bat. I was like, oh, like, Jim is
he's
tough.
A badass.
He is
This
tough.
is Fight Club. Yeah. He's about to beat the shit out of this guy. So he leaves him there, and he basically says, like, Flask will never admit that I'm the one that beat him because he's just too proud.
Right.
And he says, and this will also show a message to the other cops at GCPD that I am not to be fucked with.
Yeah, and like, I'm not going to go lightly.
Yeah.
You can do all you want to do to get me out of here, try and kill me, whatever.
Right.
I'm here to stay, and if you fuck with me, you're going to regret it.
Yeah. And it is funny, in my notes here, I say, Jim runs Flask off the road and pulls an Uno reverse card on him.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. And then shortly after that, that's when Bruce has that, when he's like, you know,
in the study.
That's when he has his moment of like, I need to be a symbol.
I need to become something dead, or I might need to die.
Yeah, I need to become a symbol. You know, something they fear, and he's just a random bat, and he's like, yes.
That's it. Yeah, which is cool because back in the it was either the 30s or the 40s. I forget when Batman was created exactly, like the exact year, but that was kind of a part of his origin where he was, you know,
Afraid of bats.
He wasn't afraid of bats. That was something they added later.
Thanks, Christopher Nolan.
Yeah. He was just sitting in his study and he was like trying to think of what his costume was going to be. And then he sees a bat. It doesn't crash through his window. It just flies in and flies out. And he's like, that's it. I will become a bat. And that's it. In this is where we get the famous, like, him becoming Batman.
Yeah.
Where it crashes through the window, it lands on a bust of his father, Thomas Wayne. And, you know, he's like, or before that, he's like, I might have to die tonight, Father. Like, if I can't be effective, then there's no point in me even being alive.
Instead of becoming just this raging torrent of anger, vengeance, all
he needs
stuff,
to focus it.
Yeah, he's becoming more a focused weapon of what he wants to do, sharpening the edge.
Right. So the bat crashes through, and he's like, that's it. I shall become a bat. And then he reaches for the bell, and we don't see what happens, but obviously, like, Alfred comes, he fixes him. Because I believe this is also where they established that Alfred was in the British military. Because that's, like, a really big part of Alfred now.
Yeah, why he's able to, like patch him up, all this stuff, Also, why he can go toe-to-toe with a Superman after getting him with green kryptonite,
right.
You know?
Yeah.
Just...
Yeah, Alfred, I think this is where Alfred really becomes, like solidified in what we know him as today.
Yeah.
Now, I will say, Alfred does not show up after this, I think. Like, that's it.
I think he's mentioned, if I remember
it.
correctly, but yeah, I don't think he shows up physically for the rest of the story.
Yeah, he does not play a huge role in this.
Because for the most part, the rest of the story is completely from Jim's perspective.
I believe so, yes.
I think except for whenever he's running from the cops, when Batman's running from the cops. I'm pretty sure
at the end of chapter 2/3.
Yeah, that's when it's all Batman's perspective. But I think because if I remember correctly, like chapter 4 is pretty much all Jim's perspective.
Yeah, I'm looking at my notes here, and it says that issue 2, we open up and it's like a hostage situation.
Yeah,
like Jim is just on the highway. It's, you know, nuts to butts traffic. And then he gets a call from, not Martinez, that's from the Batman movie. But basically his partner calls in and says, hey, there's a hostage situation. Brandon, Commissioner Loeb has called in Brandon, who's like the head of SWAT. And they're essentially like the closest thing to just a mercenary group. Like
Yeah,
they go in and they kill.
Yeah, they're a death squad.
Yeah.
It's like, we're gonna take everyone down this building. We're not gonna read you your rights. We don't give a shit.
Yeah. The reason why this is so important to Jim as well is because there's children involved, and it's like a mentally challenged man.
Yeah.
That like he doesn't like obviously he's still doing something wrong, but he doesn't know any better.
Yeah. He's obviously under some kind of mental
distress.
Yeah.
And so Jim, he beelines it to the hostage situation, and it's all being recorded live, like it's live news. Because for some reason, because for some reason in Gotham, like they just televise everything.
It's entertainment,
even if it's like the Joker killing a whole building of people.
It's like ancient Rome and gladiators.
Except
it's blood sport.
Except it's like 1987.
It's still a blood sport. Oh, all it's missing is Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Yeah. So Jim arrives to the hostage situation. His wife's watching. It's all being televised. He puts his gun down to show that he's not going to be armed. And he just kind of monologues to himself. And he kind of talks about like, my wife's watching this. She's freaking out. She's so far along. But I can't let Brandon and his guys go in because these children will die. And he goes in. He goes to the armed gunsman. And he just kind of like talks to him. The guy's just speaking nonsense because again, he's not mentally there. And then he finds an opening and he takes the guy out. He doesn't pull like a Batman and just wail on the dude. He just knocks him out and makes sure the kid's okay.
Yep.
And then it's from that point on that Jim is labeled a hero.
Yeah.
Which kind of mirrors his coming to Gotham and nobody really caring who he is to we're now at the beginning of chapter 2 and he is everywhere.
Yeah, he's
everyone knows him.
And it also like logistically on Jim's side a good thing because it's even later mentioned Loeb's like I can't really do anything about him because the people love him.
If we take him out, that'll just turn the people against us.
He'll become a martyr essentially.
Which I love that. I think that's just really good.
It's also super believable reason why someone of Loeb's power and authority is letting Jim just do whatever the fuck he wants.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, and they kind of touch upon this at the end of chapter 2, I believe, where Carmine Falcone's just kind of like, Jim's not really doing anything that's fucking up my things. So I don't care what he does. So Jim becomes a hero, and at the same time, there's starting to be little inklings, little reports of a giant bat running around Gotham. And that's kind of the first signs of Batman is now active. He's doing stuff. And it is cool because we get a nice scene of Jim like at home with Barbara and they're talking about Superman because Superman, by this point, Superman is established.
Yeah.
Which we will do Superman's one of his many origins here soon. We'll do my favorite origin of Superman.
Yeah, we'll fit it into the schedule somewhere.
Yeah. They're talking about Superman, blah, blah, blah. And then the phone rings and, he's talking to, I don't know if he's talking to the commissioner, or if he's just talking to someone at the GCPD.
I think he's just talking to someone at the GCPD.
Yeah. But it's about Batman.
Yeah.
That happens. Batman makes his first actual appearance.
Yeah.
And he finds 3 thugs, and I believe they're all children, teenagers.
Yeah, they're not
adult. Yeah, they're not goons. Yeah. And he finds them on the fire escape of this apartment. And he's just staring at them, staring down at them like a creature of the night, which is cool. I really like that image of Batman just kind of, and they did it in the Batman movie in the elevator scene where the power's out at the Iceberg Lounge. I love when Batman's up in the corner, kind of doing a Spider-Man, where he's just kind of holding himself up in the corner because it just looks so creepy.
It's unnatural to see a person being like that.
Yeah, I love that. So he jumps down and he starts wailing on these dudes, and he's kind of having this inner monologue where he's like, "There's 3 of them. They're young."
Yeah, and he's going through the tactical.
Yeah, but then
process.
He's still new at it, so he's really sloppy, and so they get good hits on him. He's like, "Oh, this isn't good. They're starting to turn the tables on me." All that. One of the kids ends up falling And Bruce has that moment of like, I'm not a murderer.
Yeah.
He even tells himself, I'm not a murderer.
Because I think, doesn't he be like, I can deal with these two if I let him fall.
Yeah, but if I let him fall, then it's not worth it.
Yeah.
And he catches the guy, and the other two guys just start wailing on him. They pick up a TV, like a tube TV.
Yeah.
And they smash it into the back of his head. And
he's still holding on.
He has this inner monologue of like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I'm about to pass out.
Well, with that scene I have in my notes that, you know, because when Jim's sitting in his apartment and they're talking about like Superman stuff, you know, he's talking about how the city has no hope and things like that. And you know, there's this talk of like, you know, with Batman being like, you know, I need to be fear and all this things like that. But he eventually becomes the hope for the city.
Yeah.
So it was cool to see him talking about we need hope. And then it cuts to Batman, who will eventually become hope.
Yeah. Right now he's just a symbol of fear.
Yeah, which I thought was a cool kind of like, he will become the hope that Jim's talking about, but right now he's just like,
he needs to be something else.
He's like, I want them to be afraid of me. And I just thought that was really cool, kind of like a foreshadow, but also like, hey, we're not there yet.
Yeah, we're not there yet.
Take your time.
We got a couple more stories before we get there.
Yeah, exactly. I thought that was really well done.
I agree. So Batman beats the shit out of these three hooligans, and he ends up successfully getting the guy who fell up and onto the fire escape. He's passed out at this point because all the blood rushed to his head. And they're all sitting there, and Bruce just falls to the ground. He's like, oh my God. Oh, fuck. God, I have all my teeth. I can't fucking believe I have all my teeth.
I need some ibuprofen.
Yeah. And it is cool because he does talk about the suit, I believe, in that chapter, or in that section of the chapter. And just like as a little side tangent, I like the fact that the Batman suit is so simple in this, because I've been reading comics since the early 2000s, and as a child, I was so used to Batman just having a gadget for everything.
Yeah.
Especially like when we were in high school, that was when New 52 was a big thing.
Yeah.
And Bruce had Hellbat armor, which was armor he designed to fight fucking Darkseid.
Yeah, the
parademons. And he uses it to fight the Talons from the Court of Owls. And like, it's awesome. But this is just like a really back to basics Batman that just, it's him and a few gadgets, and that's it. Now there is one gadget that he has that they completely stole and put in Batman Begins. And we'll talk about when we get there.
Okay. See, I have to disagree with you.
Okay.
I love the armored up Batman. You know, like...
No, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, I love... Now, Batman's not my favorite hero, despite all the fucking Batman comics I own. I like Batman.
Yeah.
A lot.
I mean, like, I'm talking, like, you know, because I've seen people be like, you know, oh, I'm getting tired of the armored, you know, because Christopher Nolan's Batman's really brought that around with, like, it being, like, this...
It's actual armor
concept, which... I am not going to get tired of it. I love the armored bat suit because to me, in my brain, it makes sense. You know, like, I'm sorry, a normal dude wearing spandex and a cape, he might have gadgets. He's not about to take a hit from Bane juiced out on freaking his venom.
Guess what? He doesn't. He gets his back broken.
Yeah, well, yeah, but you know what I mean? Like, there, you know, he's not gonna, even if he's tough, like taking like several baseball bat hits to the body and all the armor you have,
he should be dead.
Yeah, and their excuse would be, well, it's this special type of fabric, which I guess makes sense.
I was gonna say, because they eventually do that, where they just say like, oh, it's fabric that just has special shit in it.
Yeah, I mean, like, look, as much as I like John Wick, when they introduced the like bulletproof
tux, like business suit,
yeah,
I love it.
I was like, okay, like it's cool, but at the same time, like,
I love it. I think it's cool.
I don't know. I've always
understand where you're coming from.
And a fan of the aesthetic of like, I like the bulky.
Yeah. You like the new 52 designs because those designs are more armored in nature.
Yeah.
I mean, shit, Superman, which I find stupid. Superman's outfit in that is a suit of armor. It's like actual armor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I think is dumb because he's Superman, but whatever.
I mean, like, but it's fucking cool though. You know?
Yeah, whatever.
I don't know. I'm a sucker for those kinds of designs.
No, yeah, everyone has their own taste.
Yeah.
Like I am more of a fan of like the classic like 90s / early 2000s designs because I love Superman with the trunks.
Yeah,
I think it's cool.
I mean, I just it just is hard for my brain to register. Like, yeah, he's doing all this crazy shit, fighting Killer Croc, Bane, Deathstroke, all these crazy villains in just spandex and being totally fine when he takes a hit.
Yeah,
you know, like it just.
Yeah,
I'm like, I don't know.
Definitely suspension.
Maybe if they were like, yeah, he's got like some slight super soldiery in him.
Yeah,
I'd be like, okay, it's believable.
Right.
You know, but just the like, I'm a normal dude with money. It's hard for me to suspend my belief for that.
Yeah. So he ends up getting into his first like altercation fight with these thugs. And then we cut to a few days later or a couple weeks later, and we're at the GCPD, and it's Gordon holding a meeting with the department, and which is cool because it's like, again, he came from nothing and now he's here giving meetings to people.
Yeah.
And he's joined by Detective Flass, who is in a neck brace, arm cast, and Detective Essen, who is a transfer from Chicago, which is where Jim is from. I have very strong feelings about Essen. Because it's one of the few things Frank Miller did that I hate. When it comes to this story. And and behind Jim, there's this huge like corkboard of images and stuff that's been happening around Gotham. And to one side are 3 drawing depictions of the Batman.
One is
an actual fucking bat. It's Man-Bat. It's just Man-Bat.
I thought that was really funny.
Yeah, I thought that was a nice one.
It was like they have one where it's like a dude in a bat like costume, an actual bat, and then like a hybrid of both. So
so Jim, he looks to Flass and he's like, "Hey, why don't you tell us what happened?" And Flass gives this very tailored story about how he stumbled upon a drug deal and he was gonna bust it, and he's telling about how he was doing all this heroic cop stuff, and then it shows what actually happened, where he was taking money for the drug deal,
and then Batman beat the shit out of him,
and then Batman showed up and beat the shit out of him, and then the whole GCPD starts like laughing at him, and you can tell that Flass is like, his feelings are hurt, and that he's like really embarrassed, and then Jim says like, "Hey, let's let him talk."
Like actually shows him a level of like
respect.
I wouldn't say respect, but I would say more sympathy or empathy. Because, when Jim got there, he's the outsider because he won't be on the take.
Right.
So everyone's going to disrespect him and everything like that. Now, it's not to the same level of like being an outsider, but, the whole department's like shitting on Flass. And I think in Jim's mind, it's like, I understand what it's like to not be welcomed, listened to, respected, all these things. So you know what? Even though I've already gotten my due from you, I beat the shit out of you for beating the shit out of me. We're square on that level. I don't necessarily respect you.
Because you're still a criminal.
You're still a criminal. But like, if by chance you're right and there's an individual out there that's either a mutant bat or a person dressed up in a costume, like, we need to deal with it.
Which at this point, Jim is like, this is a dude dressed as a bat. We haven't gotten to Man-Bat level yet.
Exactly. Which I'm pretty sure Jim's like, this is Gotham. Literally anything can happen. So I wouldn't be surprised if a man's dressed up as a bat.
There's a fucking dude in the next city over that flies around. And you can shoot him point blank in the eyeball and it doesn't affect him.
Exactly.
I could believe a bat in Gotham. Just a giant bat.
Exactly. And
so he lets Flass, tell this story. And it kind of just ends with Jim being like, okay, this is dumb. Like, I don't care about this. Like, I'm done talking about this. And that's essentially it. And then we cut to like 2 days later, and we go to Carmine Falcone's house. Now, Carmine Falcone is a huge character in Batman lore. I believe he was created for this story. And then he's a huge player in Batman The Long Halloween, which is essentially Batman Year 2.
I have not read the comics for Long Halloween, but I've watched the movies, the animated movies for those.
I have not seen the movies because I'm not a huge fan of... They didn't do it a lot in early animated DC, but later on they started changing a lot of things. Mm-hmm. Like Killing Joke, the movie, I think is awful.
I've not seen it, but I've definitely heard
it's really bad.
Not great things about it.
It's really bad.
I have read the Killing Joke comic though.
Yeah, and we'll do that eventually. The goal is to kind of, again, a little side tangent before we get into this next part of the story. The goal for the DC stuff is that we're going to kind of go in like not necessarily order and cover every single story, but we're going to go in order and cover every major story for the characters. And then we'll go back and we'll touch upon stories that like, oh, that sounds kind of interesting. We'll go ahead and do that.
Yeah.
And again, it's going to be easier for us to do that for DC since they reboot so much. Marvel, it's like all kinds of, you're left to the winds on them.
Yeah. Marvel is, I've read Marvel stuff and it's convoluted.
Yeah, you really need to be in it.
Yeah, you got to be in the weeds.
Yeah. So Batman, we cut to a couple days later. We were at Carmine Falcone's house, and it's basically like a dinner of the elite. Like, Carmine Falcone is there, Commissioner Loeb, the mayor,
all the bigwigs. Yeah,
all the bigwigs, and they're talking about the Batman, and Loeb is essentially like, I do not take this guy seriously. He is a dude dressed as a fucking bat.
Yeah.
Who cares? He's not messing anything up. And Falcone says he's not messing anything up now.
Yeah.
What happens when he turns his attention towards us?
Yeah.
And in that same breath, they're also talking about Gordon and what to do with him because he's starting to become so prominent in the city.
And again,
people love him.
Love him.
Yeah, because he actually fights for them.
Yeah.
And Loeb is essentially like, let me take care of Gordon. I'll make sure he plays ball. Because Loeb is like still 100%, I want Gordon to play ball. For some reason. I don't know why.
Well, because at the end of the day, Jim is extremely competent.
Yeah.
So
yeah, he is.
If he could get Jim to work for them, he'd have look, Flass is obviously just a goon and will do whatever Loeb says. But Jim is like a level of competency that I don't think they
are used to. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So, like, I think that's a major reason. I also think it might just be like maybe Loeb's pride.
Eventually I'll get him.
I can get him to.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, be corrupt. Make everything he's ever said about corruption a fallacy because he finally got on the tape.
Yeah,
so.
I can see that. So they're having this dinner, and at the same time we get an outside perspective of everything, and you see Batman take out the armed guards because he like establishes like only 2 guards are armed, which I find kind of weird, but whatever. He takes out the armed guards. He has a fucking backpack and spotlight on him.
Yeah.
And he puts it down. He sets everything up. He sets up like a explosive like C4, and then he throws a smoke bomb into the area where everyone's eating and then blows up the fucking wall.
Yep.
Surprisingly not killing anyone. And it's awesome. This is my favorite scene from the story, by the way. Where it's completely dark. There's fucking smoke everywhere. And the only thing that's lighting the room is this like flambe dish. And you get that awesome silhouette of Batman. I think it's one of my favorite Batman pictures where it's basically a silhouette of him, but he's holding his cape in his hands and it's kind of like wrapping around him.
Yeah.
And he gives this really cool fucking speech where he's like, you're the elite of Gotham and you've eaten well. You've eaten the people's wealth, their spirit. You've broken them, but not anymore. From this day on, none of you are safe, and I'm coming after all of you. And then he puts out the fire and just leaves.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. And then after that, that's when they start trying to sick the cops on him.
Yeah. Yeah, that's essentially where Loeb is like, Batman is public enemy number 1.
Yeah. I really did like the color change.
Mm-hmm.
It goes from, like kind of like the dark colors and stuff, and then it turns into this like all red, kind of like sinister, like kind of that was really cool. In my notes, I don't remember why I put this, but it says everyone needs a Barbara, and I can't remember why I put that in there. I think it was because Jim was like,
I think that's the scene where it's the scene where they're sitting and they're talking about Superman. I think I put those in the wrong order, so that's my bad. I'll notate that in the recording.
Yeah, I was like, because she was like super
supportive.
Yeah, and that's whenever we get to like Essen and stuff.
Now the Essen stuff did come before that. Yeah, they've already introduced Essen at this point. Let me see here. We then cut to basically the next day where Loeb is yelling at Jim, saying, "Hey, your job's on the line. If you don't catch this Batman, I will fire your ass. If I fire your ass, I'm going to kill you."
Yeah. Literally threatens his life.
And Jim and Essen just start throwing out these fucking hilarious plans where Essen's like, in the shady part of Gotham, like those exist. I thought all of Gotham was fucking shady.
Exactly.
But like a really bad part of the neighborhood. And, there's another cop who's pretending to be a thug and he chases her and Essen screams and Batman has his monologue where it's like, she's a good screamer. Jim's trying really hard to get captured.
He sees right through it.
He sees right through it. And it's really cool. And then Jim and Essen are in the car. They're just talking about Batman. And Jim's like, I don't think I can catch this guy. Yeah. Like, he's just too elusive.
He's doubting himself.
Yeah, like, I don't even know if this guy actually exists. Like, I'm just taking the word off of my asshole boss who's, like, a criminal. Mm-hmm. And
I think at this point, enough kind of, like,
circumstantial evidence.
Yeah, circumstantial evidence was happening.
that you should probably believe in the
Which
Batman.
Also, I thought... whenever Essen and him are talking in the car, this is when they bring up like, hey, by the way, Bruce Wayne just came back into town.
Yes, I think Essen
brings it up like, hey, like Batman only started appearing
shortly after Bruce Wayne came back.
Yeah, exactly. And that's when they decide that they're gonna go like
talk to him at some point
and stuff, and they keep trying to get a hold of him,
but they can't. They get a hold of Alfred.
Yeah, exactly.
And Alfred's like, "Oh, Master Wayne is busy." There's some bullshit like that.
Exactly.
It's like, "Oh yeah, he is busy. He's busy being fucking Batman."
Yeah, he's literally like, "Yeah, Bruce Wayne's away fucking like models, and he can't talk to the cops right now." And,
he's in, because I think they come with like some excuse that he's in like some like Sweden or something like that.
He
like
was on a ski trip.
Yeah, because they later on they use that as the excuse why he has a broken leg and arm.
Yes,
he gets shot.
Yep.
So they're in the car, they're talking. Essen brings up the whole Bruce Wayne thing, and then Jim's obviously stressed, so she lights a cigarette in her mouth, and then she gives it to him, and that's when Jim, in his dialogue, his like speech bubble, says like, "Oh, I can taste her lipstick."
Yeah,
that kind of stuff, and. That was the moment where I was like, God damn it. Yeah, that was the moment where I was like, oh, Jim. Yeah. No. The Jim and Essen stuff is
frustrating.
I do not like it.
Look, I'm on the fence about it because it's like, on one hand, it's like, dude, what's the point of it other than to like, I feel like forcefully make Jim's character edgy
or at least morally gray. Yeah, like he is corruptible.
But the whole point that they've been setting up
is that he's not
corruptible.
He's a good man.
Which they kind of bring it around though at the end when they try to use that whole thing against him. Yeah. But I felt like it was a complication that really they could have done something else.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I don't like Essen as a character. She comes back. By the way,
her character didn't necessarily bother me though.
She comes back and they get married.
Oh, do they?
Mm-hmm. During Nightfall, which is the storyline where Bane is introduced and breaks Batman's back, like the first third of that storyline, that saga, is Jim and Essen planning their wedding. Barbara, not Barbara Batgirl, but Barbara.
She dies, doesn't she?
She dies. Yeah, she's dead. I think Joker kills her. Like he throws a baby at her,
And then the baby explodes?
No, she catches the baby, and then Joker just pulls out a gun and shoots her.
I mean, both are great, but it would have been more hilarious if the baby exploded. Yeah. Like it was a fake baby, not a real baby, but you know.
No, real baby.
Just like, here you go.
Boom. So,
man, DC's really got something about Batman and babies, you know.
So they're talking about that. Jim thinks about the lipstick, and then Sarah notices a semi-truck that's about to hit them. And Jim catches it, and he realizes that the driver is either asleep, passed out, had a heart attack, something of that nature. And he's like, I have to stop him. And it shows Jim's like heroic character.
Yeah, he like jumps out of the car onto the side of the truck, and he's like getting them out. And Batman is seeing this whole thing unfold, because at first he's like, "Ha, Jim, you can't find me, bitch." And then he sees he's actually in trouble. And
he see that the semi truck's gonna hit that homeless lady. And then Jim's like, I can't save her. Like, she's gonna die, and it's all my fault. And then Batman appears, saves the homeless lady, and then there's like a crash.
Yeah, Jim's able to get the guy out of the truck, if I remember correctly.
I believe so, yes.
And then the truck crashes,
and both Batman and Gordon, they don't necessarily... Look, Gordon does pass out momentarily. Batman's more like he's incapacitated, like he got the wind knocked out of him. And
I mean, because he swooped down.
And Essen has Batman at gunpoint. Jim comes to, he's bleeding. And Essen basically says, like, we got the son of a bitch. That kind of deal. And Batman just cold cocks her. He just punches this shit out of her. He punches her really hard, and then he just starts running. He runs. Well, they chase him.
He doesn't even have like any of his real gadgets yet. Like, I don't think he has his grapple hook or.
I don't believe so, because in this, I don't even think he has the cape, because you know how his cape can be like a glider. He doesn't have that in the story. He has like the Leonardo da Vinci glider. The gadgets he has in this are proto batarangs. The reason why I say proto is because they're tiny. They're like
super small.
They're tiny. He has thermite because he needs it to blow up rich people's houses. And I think he has a blow dart and smoke pellets.
Yes,
that's it.
Very, very
early Batman. That's like super early Batman.
That's like he went on the freaking black market for the first time. And was like,
Like, he doesn't even have a Batmobile in this.
No.
He's just Batman.
He's raw dogging it.
If you want to say that.
He's raw dogging it, dude. He's like, I want to be Batman. I don't have the tools, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Because this is before the introduction of, like, Lucius Fox and all that.
Before he realizes he's got millions of fucking dollars.
Because it is funny because they reference Batman or Bruce Wayne as a millionaire. And then, like, a little bit after this, I think
he's like a quintrillionaire.
He's a billionaire, like a billion with a big B.
Like, he has so much money he can't count it all, so they don't actually know what kind of heir he is. So he's just a billionaire.
So they corner Batman in this tall derelict building. I'm guessing it used to be an apartment or something along those lines, and that's kind of where issue 2 leaves off, or chapter 2 leaves off, where they have him cornered and they call in SWAT. They call him Brandon, or the Loeb calls in Brandon because they have to call it in. And then chapter 3, which is simultaneously the shortest chapter,
super small,
because like I only have like 3 things of notes for chapter 3 because it's all action.
Yeah, it's all action. I will say I love the like tagline for chapter 3. It was they've got him cornered, they've got him outnumbered, they've got him trapped, they're in trouble.
I love that. I love that Frank Miller.
Great.
Yeah,
I mean, again, it's like Jim with the bat and blanking on his name, Flass. Where he's like, he's bigger than me, everything like that. He needs a hand.
It's cool dialogue. It is cool. But I love that Frank Miller does that at the beginning of every chapter, where he has like a quote. Because I think my favorite was chapter 4, where he's saying like, Batman, a protector of the city, he wants to save the people, but he can't do it alone. And it's a picture of Batman and Gordon, like Gordon's pointing a gun at him, and Batman's trying to get out of the way.
I also, it very much reminded me of the Watchmen speech with Rorschach in prison.
Yeah, I think Watchmen came out a little bit before this.
Yeah.
If it didn't come out before, it came out after.
It reminded me of that because it was like, I'm not trapped in here with you.
Oh, yeah, the Rorschach. Yeah.
You're trapped in here with me.
Trapped in here with me.
Yeah.
So, chapter 3 opens. Batman is in this derelict building, and SWAT basically gets there immediately, and they fucking napalm strike this building. They go wild.
They're like, yeah, we're gonna just level this building,
and if anybody dies, who cares? Because they're all homeless people.
Exactly.
We have a homeless problem. We're taking care of it.
Yeah.
That's essentially what he says.
Yeah, essentially.
Which is super fucked up.
Wild.
The fact that he can do that and stay as commissioner.
Exactly.
Like, the National Guard would get involved.
I'm trying to think. Just because I've been playing Cyberpunk again recently.
Yeah.
It's very like Night City. You know, like where it's like they don't give a shit about the regular person.
Nope.
So if they die, they die. Whatever. That's one less person we got to worry about, whether to feed them, clothe them, give them a place to live.
Yep.
It's less drain on our resources. And I'm like, God damn. Like this shit.
They really.
That's what I was saying. Like this Gotham they paint in this.
Like Gotham is almost a character in of itself.
Yeah, it's so just not a good place to live.
And I do like it because in this chapter they kind of establish that like the people of Gotham fear the GCPD.
Yeah.
Like just the normal people, not even criminals, like just normal people.
Yeah.
And it's almost like they're looking for somebody to believe in.
Hence why
and Jim is kind of one part of that whole. Like he's he's half of the whole. Because in this chapter they establish like Batman is the other half of it.
Yeah, because Jim, like he's the ideal of what they want from
a citizen.
From a cop.
To
protect them. But he's still part of the system.
Right. So they can't fully trust
him. And then you have Batman who's
just them.
He's the street justice that they want.
Yeah.
You know.
He is essentially the personification of what everybody else is thinking.
Yeah.
That is essentially it.
Because, Batman doesn't have a due process other than I have the evidence that you're
a criminal.
And
I'm going to beat the shit out of you.
I'm going to beat the shit out of you. And I'm going to make sure that, you're held accountable for your crimes while you have a police force that is like, slip me a 50 and you can keep going on.
I'll make it go away.
Yeah, I'll make it go away.
Yeah, I like that.
It's really cool because you're right. They are both two halves of the whole
picture.
They're both symbols of hope.
Yeah. So SWAT goes in, or first they napalm strike. They don't actually napalm strike. I don't know what they do, but they practically do. Like they kill people, and Bruce / Batman makes a point in saying like there are so many people dying right now.
Yeah,
and I can't save them. Like if I try to save these people, I will die.
Yep.
And he has to live with that. Where it's like, yes, these are homeless people, but they're still people.
Yeah, and it reinforces his whole, like
no kill rule.
Yeah, his no kill rule and his whole ethos.
Yeah,
as well.
Yeah. I think this is where they fully establish like Bruce realizes that he like not only does he get uncomfortable with the idea of killing people, he's uncomfortable with the idea of people dying while he is present.
Yeah.
Like he is present, he is active, and yet no matter what he does, he can't do anything about it.
Yep.
And this is where they really establish that.
I mean, shit, that's why Joker is such a issue for him.
Yeah.
Because he just kills everything and everyone no regard.
Yeah. So they napalm strike everything, and then Brandon and his men decide like, okay, we're gonna go in, we're gonna go collect the body. Because at this point they think he's dead.
Yeah. I mean, they blew up a fucking building.
Yeah. And they walk in and there's like homeless people just everywhere. There's like charred fucking corpses. And they're like, whatever. Like we killed a few homeless people. Who's going to give a shit? They don't have families. And then they see like a hatch. And they were like, oh, okay, he went down that hatch. He cornered himself. They go down the hatch. He's not there. Turns out there's a fucking chimney in that room that they didn't think about. And it has like a wall caved in and all that kind of stuff. And then Bruce uses the blow dart. It's just so odd seeing Batman with a blow dart.
It's technically gun. It's a blow gun.
Yeah, so, he's breaking his rule.
He's breaking his rule.
He needs to go ahead and quit. Where's Terry? Where's Terry McGinnis? He's breaking the rule. So he takes out Flass. He uses one of his blow darts. I think he only has like 3. Mm-hmm. He uses one to take out not Flass, Brandon.
Yeah.
And then he takes out a couple more guys, and then he starts to actually Batman it up and like stealthily take people out.
And at one point, one of the cops tries to shoot a cat.
Yeah, yeah, he tries to, because the cat keeps showing up.
Yeah.
And he's like, this fucking cat.
And in my notes, I have Batman shows his love for cats.
Yeah,
you know, like. Yeah. And he proceeds to beat the shit out of that.
Yeah, because he sees the gun and he's like, you're the one that tried to kill the cat. Yeah, I don't know why Batman has such a love of cats.
We know.
Oh, yeah, we know.
We know.
Because, and I will say, speaking of Catwoman, there is, by this point, there's like a crowd of people.
Yeah, and she's watching TV, isn't she?
Holly is watching TV,
right.
And she wants to go. And Selina's essentially like, I mean, we're not doing anything. Fuck it. Let's go.
Again, it's entertainment. I said it earlier.
Yeah.
It's just, the crime is just entertainment at this
point.
Yep. That's all it is.
And because they're essentially like, okay, well, the worst that happens is we see the Batman die. Who cares?
Yeah.
Like, because at this point, they don't even think the Batman's real.
Yeah.
Like, the people don't think it's real. Mm-hmm. And Batman saves the cat. The cat rolls out. Selina takes it because it turns out to be one of Selina's cats.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
And in him trying to save the cat, Batman gets shot in the leg and in one of his arms. Mm-hmm. And so he's basically working at half capacity at this point. Yeah. He's bleeding out, all kind of stuff. But there's a cool moment where there's a pillar and he's fighting a few cops and he's like, oh, you shot me in my good leg. And then he uses the leg that he was shot in to break a pillar inside the building and collapse the ceiling.
Yeah.
And then he goes to the guy that tried to kill the cat, and he just starts wailing on him, just beating him. This story is literally just Batman just wailing.
Yeah,
on
this
people.
is really the chapter that's showing like Batman in his most violent form.
Yeah, because he tones down a lot after this.
Yeah, like he is just straight up like, you're going to be eating through a straw
for at least a couple months.
After this. Now, granted, there are moments later after this that I think, there are moments where Batman's like kind of maybe pushing the line.
Oh yeah,
but it's like, it was really cool to see, especially it's like early Batman. He doesn't have that control and everything like that.
Mm-hmm. He has discipline, but he doesn't have moderation.
Yeah. The only I'm gonna bring up the whole cat thing again. That's one part that I didn't like was this. I felt too like, like it's Catwoman's cat,
like it's very coincidental.
Yeah, that part I was like, okay, like this is too much of a big wink to the audience.
Like, oh, she's Catwoman.
Yeah,
which is, I agree, because she eventually just becomes Catwoman in this.
Yeah, she's just like, you know what?
Fuck it.
I'm gonna throw a ski mask on.
Yeah,
and I'm gonna go out there and find the Batman.
Yeah,
and we're gonna bone.
Yep, we're gonna fuck on diamonds.
Yeah, exactly.
So he's fighting this SWAT member, and he ends up kicking the dude so hard he flies through a full brick building out into the public. Oh, there is something that happened right before that I forgot to mention. If you remember, I said that there is something they stole from this that they put in Batman Begins. There's a thing on the bottom of Batman's shoe because his belt ends up catching on fire and like he loses all his tools. And so he has to like hand to hand everybody.
Yeah.
He says, I have one last trick and it's never been tested, but I developed it. So this is the best time to test it. And he presses this button and it goes to the cave under Wayne Manor and you start to hear the chirping of bats.
Oh, yeah. I know what you're talking about.
And then, he kicks the dude through the wall and he lands and the city of Gotham sees Batman for the first time in broad daylight.
Yeah, and he's got all the bats and everything.
And people are cheering. Like they are like, holy shit, this is awesome. And this is the moment where Batman becomes a symbol of the people because he is the representation of the people's frustration with, the government basically of Gotham.
I just realized you're wearing a Batman shirt.
I am. I'm wearing the Starry Night.
Yeah,
Van Gogh.
I just realized that.
Yep. Yeah, I did that. I told Nicole that I should buy a shirt for every time. So like next episode, have a Ghost Rider.
Yeah, okay.
Spoilers on what our next episode's gonna be.
Yeah.
So he kicks the guy through. Everyone's cheering, and there's a really cool narration from Batman where he's like, "I kicked the guy through," and the crowd cheers, and then the crowd turns to screaming, and it shows all the bats coming in, and they just swarm everywhere. There's thousands of these fucking bats. This is the largest cage system I've ever seen.
Cool.
It is cool. And then Batman steals a police motorcycle and just goes.
Yeah.
He just starts going, and they chase him for a while, and then he disappears.
Yep.
Like by the time the bats disperse, there's no motorcycle, no Batman. One cop even drives off a dock into the water because he's trying to get Batman, but the bats are blocking the way. And then by the time they disperse, it's too late, and he fucking goes flying into the water.
It's so cool.
It is cool.
I'm not even mad if Batman Begins stole it because it's so fucking cool.
It is cool. Yeah, they use it to really good effect in Batman Begins.
I that's probably my favorite scene, other than when he's taking out the goons at the docks.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Where are you?"
Yeah.
Behind you.
Yeah, because that's also where that's a homage to Flash.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Granted, I don't like the actor that they got to play Flash because they just don't look alike.
Are you talking about the bigger heavyset guy?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It doesn't look like the actor's good. Like he's a good actor. But it's just not the same character.
I mean, he's in Sons of Anarchy.
Yeah.
It's so good.
I've never watched Sons of Anarchy. What sucks is, speaking of motorcycles, because we're doing Ghost Rider next, I have to watch those Nicolas Cage movies.
Oh, but they're such a good time because they're so bad.
Yeah.
Nicolas Cage is an American treasure. Like,
so I'm gonna have to watch those after I read.
Whenever Nicolas Cage dies, I hope they
immortalize him.
I hope they cremate him and put his ashes right next to the oh my gosh.
Declaration of Independence.
Yeah. I can't speak. I want them to do that whenever he dies.
That will never happen.
I hope. I really hope. That'd be so great.
So everyone gets fucked up by these bats, and that's essentially all of chapter 3. Like chapter 3 is, reading it felt really short because it's just so much action.
Yeah.
But it was good. It was good because those first 2 chapters were a real slow burn.
Yes.
So,
and also just the fact that I'm surprised we haven't brought up the narrator bubbles yet.
Yeah.
Because, with it all being action, you're kind of getting a break from Bruce Wayne's cursive written,
Christ,
almost barely readable handwriting narrator bubbles.
Frank Miller does this really cool thing in this where he separates Gordon's and Bruce's monologues in 2 distinct styles, where Gordon's looks like it's like typewriter writing. Mm-hmm. Like it's almost like he's typing up a report for a police station thing. Bruce's looks like it is handwritten in a journal that he keeps, kind of like what they did in the Batman movie.
Yes,
where he writes everything down.
Yeah. Like the day's events.
Yeah, but Bruce's is all in cursive to represent that, like, he's a rich asshole.
Yeah.
And now, with a little bit of context, Mason and I grew up at the tail end of cursive.
Yes.
Where I think they maybe taught it to us a couple years in elementary school.
After 3rd grade, I did not need to write cursive anymore.
Correct. Yeah. I'm in the exact same boat.
I take that back. So they taught us cursive like 1st, 2nd. 3rd was like, you need to use it all the time, be proficient. 4th, they were like, hey, use it. It's a good skill to have, but if you don't, we're not really going to care. And then 5th grade, they were like, hey, do whatever you want.
Yeah. Because the only thing you need to have in cursive sometimes is your signature.
Yeah. That's it. Signing my name is the only fucking thing I really know how to write in cursive.
Correct. Yeah, same.
Which is so bad.
Yeah.
And my regular handwriting is atrocious.
Same.
It is so bad.
Same. So that's just like a quick tangent. That's like one of the other few things I wasn't a fan of / I was a fan of this book.
Yeah.
Where I'm a fan of it because I love the differentiation of Jim and Batman. But it was also frustrating because I'm trying to read a comic while also look at the pretty pictures.
And you got to reread a sentence.
And I have to reread it like 3 times because Frank uses words that I've never heard before. Like my vocabulary is not that complex. And so I'm seeing a word and I'm like, what the fuck does Serengeti mean? I'm like, what is that? And then I'm impressed with myself because I was able to read it.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I definitely got the point across, like personalizing characters in their own way. But yeah, it was unreadable. I'm surprised it took us that long because whenever we were first talking about doing this and reading Batman Year One, you're like, hey, just so you know, the narrator speech bubbles for Bruce Wayne are a bitch and a half to read.
Yeah, it took me a couple nights to get through it just because of that.
I was like, yeah, because I would go through a couple panels with the narrator of Bruce Wayne, and I'd be like, huh, okay, let me reread that.
Yeah.
I feel like I missed something.
Yeah, like you kind of feel like an idiot.
Yeah,
reading it just a little bit.
Maybe we are. Maybe we're the
I'm definitely an idiot.
Maybe we're the 2 only people who struggle. But I was like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So that's basically all of chapter 3. Very quick, very fun.
Yep. It definitely is kind of like a payoff for how the slow burn of the first few chapters.
Actually, that's not the end of chapter 3. There's a little bit more. Because Selina, after all of this, decides to become Catwoman.
Yeah.
I forgot. There's a couple things that I left out that are actually very important. She decides to become Catwoman, and she becomes a burglar. She becomes a thief. The other thing that's in chapter 3 that I hate is we get a scene where it's raining, and Jim and Sarah are at a diner, and they go to this diner every night after they get off work, and it's raining, and Sarah needs to catch a cab, and she misses it, and so they wait under an awning,
and it's all film noir.
It's all black and white, and it's stylized. David Mazzucchelli is a
the art's very good.
He is so good.
The art's very
good. And I am very critical of old comic book art.
I mean, I have like, I love the art. There is, we've talked about it before, and we can get into it later, but I do have some qualms with it. But continue.
It's very beautiful, and I think the color and sometimes lack of color is really good, which we can thank Richmond Lewis for that. Richmond Lewis is David Mazzucchelli's wife, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's really atmospheric, but I just don't like the scene because they're under the awning, and he smells her perfume.
It's a little cliche-ish.
And they kiss, and that is when they finally hook up, and that's basically the end of chapter 3, where Jim is sitting at the foot of his bed after hooking up with Sarah, and he has his full-term pregnant wife lying, and he's holding his gun in his hand, and he's talking about everything he hates. He hates the city. He hates Batman. He hates the gun. He hates the fact that he brought his wife to Gotham.
The fact that he just essentially cheated on his wife.
He hates that he hates himself for cheating on Barbara. He hates that he's bringing his child. Because I believe they established at this point that it's going to be a boy. Yeah. He hates that he's bringing his son into a world like this. And that's it.
Yeah. It started with some action. It ended with Jim getting action.
And then it ended on a very somber note.
Yeah,
I could not imagine reading this monthly, because at this point, Batman was a monthly title.
Oh, okay.
And you only got this in the main Batman imprint. Just Batman. This wasn't like a story that was spread throughout all the different Batman titles, like how Nightfall was. This was Batman 404 to 407.
It was like a straight run.
It was just a straight run, but you only got it once a month. So imagine reading that and then having to wait a month to see what happens next. I could not do that.
Okay. So chapter 4.
Chapter 4.
My favorite goddamn chapter.
Yeah.
This is my favorite fucking.
This is a good chapter. It's so crazy how good this story begins and ends, and it's such a basic story too. It doesn't do anything crazy, but I'm also looking at it from the lens of somebody who grew up in the early 2000s.
Yep.
So,
should I go through my notes list?
Yeah, if you want. If you want, I'm gonna have to explain everything. If you want.
Well, I just say if you're listening to this and you've read this you'll know what I'm talking about. You'll probably have the same roller coaster of emotions. If you haven't read this, you can try and assume what's going on. It's just a fun little mental exercise.
Yeah.
But these are my notes. There's not many, but they're all very profound to me. So starting off, first note for chapter 4. God damn it, Jim.
That was so loud it peaked the mic.
Sorry.
It turned the mic off.
Sorry. And then, second note, karma, Jim. That's what it is, karma. Yeah. And then it's, hey, at least you own up to your mistakes, Jim. You know, at least at the end of the day, you're being decent. And then it's, oh my God, Bruce is keeping up on a bicycle. And then my favorite one, I'll get away from the mic for this because this is exactly what I said out loud when I read this part. Oh my God, it's a flying baby. And then I won't read the last one because we'll end up talking about that one. But
so those are Mason's like cliff notes. There's a lot of stuff that happens in between those pages. Because the issue basically opens up with this thug. I forget his name. It's an African American gentleman. And I don't know if it's like a lackey or a secretary or what, you know, I don't know what criminals have, but it's a lady.
They have henchmen.
Yeah, whatever.
Henchwoman.
Yeah. She's basically saying like, hey, if you keep this up, the Batman's going to find you and he's going to beat the shit out of you. And the guy's essentially like, I'm untouchable.
Yeah.
And then she leaves the room and she hears this loud like crash. And she's like, oh, are you okay? And he's like, I'm fine.
Yeah.
And then it shows him inside the room and Batman's got him by like the throat on the ground. And like there's like cocaine everywhere and shit.
Classic.
Because he did cocaine before she left the room. And Batman has this really cool line of like, you know, I don't feel pain, but I know pain.
Yeah.
And I love to share it with people like you.
Yeah.
And it's a really cool moment because they have the conversation the criminal and the woman have is that he doesn't know if he's going to testify against Commissioner Loeb /Flash / the GCPD in general. And then when Batman says that, he shows up in Gordon's office and says, I have a confession I would like to make. Yeah.
Immediately.
It's like, it's really cool.
I'd rather go to jail than deal with Batman.
Another thing that happens in chapter 4, I believe it happens in chapter 4. I'm a little fuzzy on it. There is a really fucking hilarious scene where Carmine Falcone's henchmen show up in Carmine's room and they're like, "Oh my God, Falcone, your Rolls Royce, it's in the Gotham City River or whatever." Yeah. And it just shows I think I have it in my notes where it shows Carmine Falcone hog-tied, butt-ass naked. I don't know what's up with Batman and Jim getting dudes naked, but he's like, put a head out on Batman. I want the dude dead. Yeah. I want him gone.
I think the reason why they dressing these guys down is to
humiliate them.
These
are people of power.
Yeah, if you're not gonna look at Falcone after seeing him butt ass naked or hearing about it and be like super afraid of that, because it's like, dude, you just got like dressed down, hog-tied. Like I can't respect my boss.
Yeah,
like that.
Yeah.
So
he basically says like, Batman's a dead man. I want Jim to take care of him. And, he essentially hints at like, we know Jim's secret. And then we cut to Jim talking to Essen saying, I can't do this. Like, it's wrong.
Yeah.
And Essen is essentially like, if she wasn't pregnant, would you leave her? And she does like kind of save herself by saying like, that's not fair.
Yeah.
Like, I can't do that to you. And she puts in a transfer and she leaves. And Jim has this really terrible line where he goes, there goes the love of my life.
Yeah. And that's why I was like,
and maybe it's just me, controversial opinion here. I think cheating is wrong.
Yeah.
But like, obviously I love Nicole. And like, I just can't imagine like,
yeah. So, chapter 3 with the kissing and the rain, it wasn't confirmed that they had slept together after that. It wasn't until this chapter 4 that it was confirmed that they had been having an affair.
Correct.
Correct. And then I got to a point where Jim was like, we can't keep doing this. Mm-hmm. You know, I do love my wife.
Yeah.
And shit like that.
Yeah.
And again, like you said, to Essen's credit, that's why mainly why I don't have a problem with her character, you know, because it's like, I have a problem that she was written as kind of like just an obstacle for Jim to overcome as far as like his romantic relationship with his wife.
That's kind of just Frank Miller's writing style. He kind of uses women like that a lot.
Yeah. So I didn't necessarily like that, but I didn't have a problem with her character because it's an honest thing. It's like,
yeah, it's a real world issue.
Yeah, you can't help necessarily who you fall in love with.
Correct.
You can help your actions, you know.
I think the reason why I dislike it so much is because of my viewpoint of who Jim is as a person from reading comics for so long, where Jim is supposed to be just as morally sound and competent as Batman.
Yeah.
He is supposed to be incorruptible because he is the only good cop.
I have a problem with this situation with, like you said, for Jim's character. Mm-hmm. I don't have a problem with this situation with Essen's character.
I can understand that. Like, if maybe I would feel differently if they established like Essen loves, like she wants Jim, but Jim holds fast and he says like, hey, like you're a beautiful woman. I appreciate it, but I just can't.
Yeah.
Like I have a wife. And then if Barbara ends up dying later on and then he's like,
yeah,
okay, I'm going to get with Essen, I probably wouldn't have that big of an issue.
Yeah, if it was like a situation where like in this year 1, it's addressed like, hey, Jim, I've fallen in love with you.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, I have a wife. We can't do that. Yeah. Things like
maybe
that.
Maybe in another time.
You know, it's like it falls to the wayside.
Mm-hmm. And then it comes back later on.
Through multiple issues, you know, they have a really tight bond, but it's never crossed that line. And then Barbara dies. And
then you can have that. I agree.
I think it'd be very much more natural. But I can see probably people like hating on Essen's character because of this whole affair thing. But it's like, in this situation, if they were real people, I don't think necessarily Essen did anything wrong. Mm-hmm. You know, like, she did, but she owned up to it and was like, you know, it's unfair for me to like ask this question, things like that. Mm-hmm. And she did the right thing, put a transfer in and stuff like that. Obviously should have done the right thing sooner. Mm-hmm. You know, I can't hate her character for this. Mm-hmm. I can't bring myself to. I hate it for Jim. Yeah. I'm like, Jim, God damn it. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
You know?
With a kid on the way and everything.
Yeah, exactly.
So we go through all of that, and eventually we get to a point where Jim has to go to Bruce Wayne's mansion. He finally got a hold of Bruce.
Yeah.
And he brings Barbara with him. Mm-hmm. Now, if I'm leaving anything out, let me know. But he brings Barbara with him, and they go to Wayne Manor. Bruce has, you know, the cast, or I think at this point he's healed because it's been a few months, and they're basically questioning him like, hey, where were you on this day, the day that Batman, you know, fought the SWAT team? Mm-hmm. And he was like, oh, I was in Switzerland and I got into an accident and all that. And, you know, he's basically playing make-believe because he has this woman who speaks a language that he doesn't even know, and he's drinking fine wine, champagne, but it's actually
he's playing the act.
Yeah, but it's actually like the stuff that you drink, like apple cider or something like that, something you drink on like New Year's. And they question him, go through all this, leave, and Barbara's talking to Jim, and she's saying like, you know, Bruce Wayne's a pig. He's just a rich dude. You know, he doesn't have an honest bone in his body, and you know, he's a scumbag. Yeah. And then Jim is talking, and he's talking about like honesty and being truthful to who you are, being truthful to the people you care about. And that's when he stops the car and he's like, damn it, I have something to tell you. Yeah. And that's when he tells her.
Before this, is when they depict and show that they have the when Loeb and Flass have the information.
Yeah, you are correct.
That he was having an affair.
Correct. They basically use it to blackmail him, to use him. Like, they finally have dirt on him, and they can make him do whatever.
Yeah, they're pretty much like, hey, fucker, like, you're not as pure and clean as you think you are.
I will say, this is my bad. I left something else out in my notes. In chapter 2, they do establish that they go to Harvey Dent first.
Yes.
Because he's the district attorney, and they think he's Batman, Jim and Essen. And then they leave.
Yep.
And they're essentially saying, like, oh, he has the right build, he has the right motive.
But Jim disregards it.
Jim does disregard it. And that's when they reveal that, like, Batman and Harvey Dent are already working together.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Batman's hiding in the office.
Yep. So,
just the only reason why I remember that is because of the coked up criminal who's like, I have a confession to make, and Harvey Dent's there, and he's like, and Jim's like, what? How the hell did that happen? And Harvey's like, I don't know.
Yeah, shrugs his shoulder and is like, I'm gonna take it.
I don't know. That's just a thing I had to correct real quick. I forgot to mention Harvey Dent because he doesn't play a huge role in this. He plays a massive role in The Long Halloween.
Yes,
he's basically like the other main character of this of the story.
He's essentially like the Jim Gordon of this book.
Yeah,
in that.
Yeah. So he tells Barbara about the affair, and then we cut to a few weeks later. And they keep calling, or I think Jim establishes that there is a criminal in the GCPD and something happens, and Jim arrests him. He's like, put this dude under arrest. And the other cops are like, you can't do that. And Jim's essentially like, why not?
And they try to blackmail him.
Yeah, and they start calling his wife.
Yep.
And she's essentially like, I know about Sarah Essen. Stop calling me.
Yeah.
And she ends up having James Jr. We kind of like just have a montage of like things happening at this point because I think by this they're like, okay, we're on issue 4, we need to wrap things up.
Yeah,
we have a montage of things happening, like, you know, James Jr. being born, Barbara Gordon dealing with the fallout of
them trying to repair.
Trying to repair things. We have Batman still doing some like Batmaning and stuff. He's like spying on people. This is where that Batglider thing comes in, where he goes to Carmine Falcone's house. On the news, they establish that Catwoman, like they acknowledge her existence, and they basically say like Batman's sidekick, Catwoman.
Yeah,
like they try to.
They don't know.
Yeah, they don't know.
Yeah,
because at this point we have Superman. That's it.
Yeah, and then we have a bat, and then we have a cat.
Yeah,
and
Batcat.
And that shit rhymes.
Yeah, and that pisses Selina off, and she's like, fuck this, you know what, I'm gonna show them that I'm not Batman's sidekick. And she goes to Carmine Falcone's house as well at the same time as Batman. And they have like a really quick interaction where Batman is essentially like, I don't have time for you, you're annoying, you're not a part of the mission, go away. Like he has no like,
she will remember that.
Yeah, there is no like sexual tension between Batman and Selina in this story. Yeah. Batman is full on.
Because they don't even, this is their first like real interaction.
Yeah.
He's like, all about the mission.
Yeah, he's all about the mission. Get the fuck out of here, bitch.
Yeah.
And he beats up Falcone's dudes. He beats them all to hell and then just leaves. Like he gets the information he needs and leaves. He ends up planting a bug in Carmine's house. That's basically what he was trying to do, so he could spy on him. And while Falcone is knocked out, because Batman punched the shit out of this old dude, Selina scars his face, leaves like 3 claw marks. And it's like, that's a permanent scar. He actually has it in The Long Halloween, which is why people are like, oh, okay, this is year 2.
Yeah, okay.
And Selina just leaves. The blackmailing isn't working on Gordon. And so Falcone is basically talking to Loeb and his other goons. And he tells them that once a man becomes a father, he's never truly free. Basically saying, like, we can't use the affair as blackmail anymore. We need to teach him a lesson, and that lesson is going to be his kid. They're like, we're going to kill his kid.
A newborn.
Yeah. Oh, he's a mob boss. Who cares?
Still, that's a fucking newborn.
Yeah.
Like, you're no longer just like mafia mob boss evil. You're like,
yeah, he's a fucked up human being.
Yeah,
just before all the masked goons start rolling into town, because Long Halloween is when they really establish that like Gotham is no longer a city filled with mobsters. It's filled with masked.
Yeah, it pretty much
monsters.
Showcases all of Batman's
rogues. Yeah, basically all the ones that people care about.
Yeah.
So he says that, Jim wakes up. He is with Barbara because they're going to go somewhere. They have James Jr. And he gets the shit beat out of him. Or I believe he gets the shit beat out. Either they beat the shit out of him or they already have the baby. One of the two. I believe he gets the shit beat out of him and they take the baby.
It's been like a week. I'm trying to remember. I thought they beat the shit after they have the baby.
I think that is correct.
Because I think they used like a fake like call to lure him away.
Yes.
They used a fake call to lure him away so they could go, and he comes back because he realizes it's a fake call.
And they already have Barbara and James Jr. Yeah. And then they take him, they start to drive off, and at the same time as all this is happening, and when Carmine mentions like a father's never truly free once he has a child, Bruce hears all of that, and so like he's like, well, they're gonna do this in the middle of day. I can't be Batman in the middle of the day.
Nice.
And he dresses up as like a masked motorcyclist, shows up on a motorcycle as they're driving away. Jim pulls out his gun and fucking shoots Bruce Wayne.
Yep.
Just shoots him. Now, I think it's implied that like he thinks he's a part of it.
Yeah.
He shoots Bruce and then gets on the motorcycle, tells Barbara like, call Merkel. I think that's the name of his partner. I am probably completely wrong on that, and if I am, sorry. He's basically the Martinez of of this book. And he tells Barbara like, I'm gonna go get our son. I'll be back. Please protect yourself. Call so-and-so. Get him here. And he, drives off. And I believe at this moment, one of the thugs dropped a gun. And so she's holding Bruce at gunpoint. Obviously, he has the helmet on.
Yeah.
And he says, Mrs. Gordon, you have to trust me. I will not let your son be harmed. You have to let me go. She lets Bruce Wayne go. And then Bruce Wayne gets on a bicycle
and keeps up
with Jim and Carmine Falcone's nephew.
They're both in motor vehicles going
high-speed chase going on right now.
Keeping up on a bicycle.
And he keeps up with them.
And that bicycle has a basket on the front too.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know why I remember that specifically. It's just so fucking funny to me.
He keeps up with them. And they essentially get to like
a bridge,
the Brooklyn Bridge, basically, like a big ass bridge, and they're tussling. Jim's trying to get James Jr. out of Falcone's nephew's arms, and they eventually get to like up on the edge where Jim is basically being beaten. And at this time, Bruce is like climbing the bridge, like the actual arch structure of the bridge, and I don't fucking know why, but And
drama.
Yeah, and Carmine's nephew drops the baby.
Yeah, off the side of the fucking bridge.
Side of the fucking bridge.
It was a flying baby.
It was a flying baby. And he screams no. He's like, my son's dead.
And he tries to like jump down and save it.
Yeah, he like pulls Carmine's nephew with him, and they both fall down.
And it has a really cool shot of their silhouettes.
Yeah,
and it's them. Carmine's nephew and Jim like tussling in the air, and then it just shows Bruce's silhouette as he's going with the baby. Which, if this was real life, that baby was dead no matter what.
Yeah, just the impact.
Yeah. Even if it did get caught, like
just
that baby,
the force. Yeah,
the baby would have been dead. But
he's mentally fucked up for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
He becomes a serial killer.
I'd love to see it.
We'll cover Black Mirror one day. So they get to the bottom. They all land. I'm going to assume Falcone's nephew is not dead. Granted, if he is dead, it's not Bruce's fault because Jim has no problem with killing people.
Yeah, that's
because he's a cop. We don't know, or at least I don't remember.
And here's the thing: if Jim could survive the fall, which he did,
then Falcone's
nephew should as well. Yeah.
I believe at this point, Bruce has also taken off the helmet. Like, he had to take it off in order to see what he was doing.
Yes.
And they're standing there.
He had no mask.
Yeah. And it's broad daylight. Jim doesn't have his glasses, but Bruce hands him the baby. And Jim essentially says, like, I'm practically blind without my glasses.
Yeah.
Implying that Jim Gordon fucking knows who Batman is. He knows Batman is Bruce Wayne, and I like that.
Yeah. I liked it because I put a note in there of that specifically of like, my last note for chapter 4 was Jim knows, like practically knows who Batman is.
Yeah, but he has so much respect for Batman that he will never reveal.
It's kind of like, you just saved the one and only thing in my life that I value more than anything.
Mm-hmm. We're good.
We're good.
We're good. Yeah. You don't have to prove anything else to me.
Yeah.
And then the book basically, it's basically over after that. We have, I think, 2 more pages, and it's talking about how Flass keeps a lot of notes, and he's actually a lot smarter than everyone thinks.
And he rats on
Loeb and Brandon, and basically anyone in GCPD that's corrupt.
Mm-hmm. Not Jim, baby.
Not Jim. In fact, we end off on Jim, who is smoking his classic pipe. He doesn't smoke cigarettes anymore. He smokes the pipe, which they'll fucking get rid of that too and go take him back to cigarettes. And he essentially says that I thought I could do this alone, but I realized that this city is bigger than me. Mm-hmm. And now I have met somebody that I can trust and that will have my back. And I'm calling him in for another thing. And he establishes that, like, he's basically in line to take a promotion to captain. Mm-hmm. And, obviously there are people trying to stop that. And
they confirm he does get the
he gets it. And he says, but none of that really matters because there's this lunatic who's trying to poison the reservoir, and he calls himself the Joker.
Yep.
And so I'm calling in my friend to take care of it. Mm-hmm. And that's essentially where it ends.
Yeah, it pretty much ends right after that panel.
Mm-hmm.
And then the book, the last couple actual physical pages of the book are like these kind of like
it's like an artist gallery.
Gallery of like
showing showing like concept art / like storyboards for everything, which is really awesome. That's for the deluxe edition of the book.
Yeah.
Which I highly recommend getting the deluxe edition of Batman Year One, because they kind of don't change anything about it. They don't recolor it or anything.
Yeah, and it's all connected into one physical copy, so you don't have to, unless you're a collector and you want to get all the edition, like different issues.
Well, get ready to shell out money for that, because that's very expensive. Yeah. But yeah, no, that is Batman Year One. It is the definitive, in my opinion, the definitive origin story of Batman. It stands the test of time. It doesn't try to meddle with continuity in a way that just makes it feel forced, which they do in other origin stories / retcon / reboots for DC, which, I love DC. Obviously, between the 2 publishers, I prefer DC. My top 2 favorite superheroes are DC characters. And I really love this story. It doesn't meddle with continuity too much, but it also fleshes out what we already know in a way that, like, it makes me view Gotham / Jim / Bruce in a different way, like in a different light. It makes me take them seriously.
Yeah. And again, as I've mentioned, I'm kind of the layman. I'm not really a huge comic book reader. Mm-hmm. At least as far as when it comes to like superhero comics and things like that. Mm-hmm. It definitely made me be like, okay, like I kind of want to dive more into Batman comics, and it's a great on ramp.
Oh yeah,
so
yeah,
for sure.
And I've always been a believer of, like, because we have these crises or these secret wars, and these publishers will say, like, oh, well, after these events are over, after this crisis is over, you can jump onto any superhero and know exactly what you're reading and what they're talking about. And it's like, no, you can't. A crisis is not a reboot. Mm-hmm. It's just a way to fix writers' fuck-ups. That's it. That's all it is, or what they perceive as fuck-ups. The only real way to get into some of these heroes, and this is kind of Nicole's issue with superhero comics. She loves Image. She loves indie. Mm-hmm. It's really difficult for her to read superhero stuff because there's no good jumping on point.
Yeah.
This is a amazing jumping on point.
This is really good, but I think it also is like, if you're expecting this level of quality,
in every story,
you're
not going to get it.
I think you're going to be sorely disappointed.
Yeah, I agree.
So you need to, like, if you're like read this and it's like, oh man, I really want to jump onto the Batman and comic game, you have to have that real expectation of like, this
not every story.
This is an anomaly in the sense of like a lot of points match up and mesh, which I also wanted to go back to the art a little bit, because I mentioned it to you before after I'd first finished reading it. I was like, I love the art and I like a lot of things they do, but there was just sometimes it felt a bit too chaotic.
Cluttered.
Like there was a lot of stuff happening at once, and it was very distracting. And also, like, maybe it's just a personal thing of how I read and stuff. It was just drawing my attention from what was going on in the scene for both good and bad reasons. Like, it's great art. Like, there's nothing, it's not badly
You can't
drawn.
deny that
it's great art, but I just think there was a lot going on that was distracting, so it ruined the flow and the pace of kind of the story unfolding as I was reading it. That's just my personal thought. Again, I could just be an idiot or something, but
no, I don't think you're being an idiot. I think that just comes down to personal taste, because I personally don't feel that way.
Yeah.
I got more distracted by dialogue than I did artwork.
Yeah.
But personal opinion, this also just comes from me. I respect Frank Miller a lot for what he's done with the comic book community. Not all of his stories are my cup of tea, because I don't like most of his stuff. Like, I love Batman Year One. I don't like The Dark Knight Returns, which is super controversial.
Oh, you don't?
I don't. I'm not a huge fan of it. I don't like his artwork, because Frank Miller is also an artist.
Yes, I do know.
I don't like his artwork. I don't think it looks great. Personal opinion. If other people love it, that's fine. More power to you. I'm not going to sit there and tell you you're wrong.
I was going to say, I like Frank Miller artwork.
I don't.
I do.
And I know I'm in the minority on that. And I know people love his writing. I know people love his artwork, and that's awesome. I'm glad people can really enjoy it. It's just not my cup of tea. I think David Mazzucchelli was the perfect choice for this book. There is no one else I think that could have drawn this book and make it look as good.
Yeah.
That's my personal
I definitely think his artwork really helped with kind of this mesh of, bringing like the 30s, 40s comic version of characters and kind of the aesthetic of Gotham and stuff, and modernizing it.
Yeah, making it that like noir.
Yeah, because one of my notes for overall on the book was that I really like the fact that his early version Batman suit was like a modernized kind of callback to like Adam West.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I can see that.
Like, just I think the coloring and the fact that it's like, the black tights and the light gray. Obviously, he didn't have like the yellow Batman symbol, but like even the ears a little bit and stuff like that. I was like, okay, this kind of looks like it's like, hey, remember Adam West and kind of how he was campy and stuff? Because essentially, early Batman, at least I got from this, it's like it's a little bit campy in the sense of you're a dude dressed as a bat. Like,
100%. I mean, that's what Batman was from like the 60s all the way up until Dark Knight Returns.
Yeah, and so it's like I think it was a cool choice to do that. And Selina's outfit in this for Catwoman.
A first Catwoman outfit.
Yeah,
I liked it.
It was good, and obviously, if we've talked about the Batman already, Catwoman's outfit in the Batman movie with Robert Pattinson very much inspired, I feel, by this.
I will say this is a personal opinion. This is about the Batman. While I understand it's heavily inspired from Year One, I hate the ski mask thing that Zoe Kravitz wears for her Catwoman outfit. I think she's great in the role. She's an amazing actress. Yeah, amazing actress. She's great in the role.
You just didn't like the costume decision.
I just didn't like the mask. The mask killed it for me. Like it's like one of the few things I don't like about that movie. And so it's a minor thing too. It's not like it destroys the story. I still take her character very serious. She has a lot of depth to her. It's just I just really don't like that design because I don't think it translates well from comic to screen.
It didn't bother me because it very much felt like something someone would have, like someone would have in their apartment or whatever, and it's like, I need a mask of some kind.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. No, I understand that.
Because that's very much kind of things that I like, kind of going back to like the whole armored Batman thing. I like things that seem like very much realistically possible as far as aesthetic. So which is crazy to say considering that I like Warhammer, but, you know, so.
Right. No, yeah, I completely understand.
But
is there anything else we want to talk about regarding the Batman Year One book?
Let me look at my notes real quick.
I think we basically covered everything that we wanted to cover. Again, I can't praise the book enough. Again, I think we both give it 2 thumbs up. I mean, if we have to rate it out of a score of 10, I don't know if we really want to do that for this show. But
I'm not a big fan of that, because I think you can like a piece of art or media.
It's very subjective,
and like you can like parts of it, but also dislike parts of it.
Yeah,
you know, it's very subjective. I mean, I don't necessarily. Yeah, I'm not a fan of rating, so I don't think we need to
just give it 2 thumbs up.
Yeah,
we both liked it.
We enjoyed it.
Yeah,
you know,
we both really liked it.
I didn't feel like I wasted my time.
Yeah, I will definitely try and see if I can put a link in the description, because I am gonna upload this to YouTube as well as Spotify and iTunes. So hey, look us up, Comics with Friends, on any platform that you enjoy listening to podcasts on. I'll definitely try and put a link in the description of the deluxe edition, because I believe that's how you should read the book. And it's very cheap, especially like I'm surprised how cheap it is. Like I think you can get the hardcover for like $15, which is good.
I think it's a great.
It's worth it.
I think it's worth it. I definitely think it's a great way to get someone to enjoy comics in general. You know, like if you kind of have a friend or a spouse or anyone that's like, man, I really want to get into comics, but it seems daunting. I think this is great. Like I said, on ramp for doing that. Because again, I'm kind of one of those people. Like I've read comic books. I'm kind of like with Nicole. I like the indie Image comics, things like that. More so than like your mainstays, Marvel and DC, even though I've read a lot of Spider-Man because he's my favorite hero.
Right.
But yeah, like I think this is a great book for a new comic book reader.
Yeah.
And again, it's affordable,
Oh yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty much everything about Batman Year One that I think we can talk about.
Yeah. I mean, that's essentially how some or most of the DC stuff we're going to cover over the next few episodes is going to be. It's going to be a lot of introductions of the characters, because I believe the next Year One story or I guess just DC story that we're covering is Superman Secret Origins,
which I'm not a huge Superman fan.
I am he is my second favorite superhero of all time. I love
this should be an interesting read for me. Superman's up there kind of like with like Captain America, where it's kind of like too Boy Scouty.
Okay, yeah, I understand that.
Like and I get that's the point of their character, to be like a paragon of like, good and justice and things like that. That just doesn't appeal to me. If you saw me in real life, you would understand why. I'm very much an edgy boy. But hence why I like Batman and stuff too. But
I mean, Batman is just very like down to earth.
Yeah, I like that realistic setting.
I'll say, I don't want to get into it because it's just not today's topic. But I'll say Superman Secret Origins, Jeff Johns, who's the writer for that, does an amazing job making Superman feel very relatable.
That's good to hear.
Like it makes him feel like an actual person.
Any comic we get into or whatever we read, I'm always gonna go in hoping to enjoy it, unless you set me up for failure and have me read some garbage. But again, it's all subjective. So like you might be like, hey, this is really good, and then I read it and I'm like, it's okay.
Yeah,
but I don't know. Before we close out, do you kind of want to go over like what we have planned for this podcast? Because we kind of just jumped right into it, and I feel like if someone's listened this far, we should kind of explain what they're on the possible ride.
Yeah,
for.
we can talk a little bit about. I don't want to give too many specifics just because, this is the very first episode. We're both new at this. So I will say, if you've been listening this far, thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Like, we are both new to this. This is the first thing we've ever done regarding recording ourselves. I would say we're both not public speakers. I mean, I'm sure it's evident by the recording, but
the main reason why we wanted to do this was just because it seemed fun.
Yeah, we just wanted an excuse to hang out with each other and do something cool. Yeah. So again, if you've been listening this far, thank you so much. Mm-hmm. Regards to the show, again, this is a bi-weekly podcast, so twice a month, every 2 weeks, we're going to release an episode. If things change, we will 100% keep people up to date and let people know if something is going to change regarding the show. Just expect us to, read stories that we love or hate. I mean, we have a lot of stuff planned. I have the first 30 episodes thought of. Yep. Now things are subject to change. I mean, I've already changed the first 10 episodes like 4 times at this point. I will say that if you are listening, I can guarantee that episode 2 is going to be Ghost Rider Unchained / Shadow Country by Benjamin Percy, which is kind of like it's not an origin story for Johnny Blaze, but it's like a back to basics.
Yeah.
For Johnny
like
Blaze.
Reset.
Yeah, it kind of makes him the main Ghost Rider again. Yeah. So like, if you love Ghost Rider, if you love Marvel, look forward to that. And yeah, that's essentially it. We're just here to really read comics and
hang
out. We're not doing this for money. We're not doing this for any type of notoriety. We just thought it sounded cool. So if people listen, awesome. If people don't, well,
we're still going to do
it. Yeah, that's okay too. I just kind of I just want to hang out and talk about stuff. And we're going to try and, be very, diverse with our stories that we read. Of course, we have the DC, we have the Marvel. We're going to cover Image, IDW, Dynamite, all those companies. We're also going to cover, manga. We're going to talk webtoons. We have Lore Olympus and Naruto already on the docket for episodes.
I've floated the ideas of pitching book series to Ethan because I like reading, and there's some wild books that I've read. Yeah. But we haven't quite nailed down if we're going to do that or how we would do that.
Yeah.
But it's definitely an idea I've floated.
Yeah, it's an idea that I'm open to.
Yeah, but I hope that if you listen to this and you decide you want to read these books for yourselves, I highly suggest supporting the artists, the authors, and things like that. Make sure you buy their products.
Yeah, whether that be through actually buying the physical product, which is what I always recommend.
Yeah,
or going and getting a subscription to DC Infinite or Marvel Unlimited, those types of services. But I will always recommend you buy the physical book.
I would also recommend buying the physical because typically you can support your local game store or comic book shop. They're great places to get and find new things. You can also find a lot of like-minded people and friends that way. So I highly suggest going getting a physical copy and supporting your local game stores, supporting the artists and the authors and things like that.
Yep, I completely agree. So yeah, we're just gonna keep chugging along. We're gonna do our next episode. Maybe eventually we'll get some other people on here to join us. I know my wife has been very open to the idea of doing a few episodes with us. We have a couple of friends that might do an episode with us. I have a couple friends at the comic book store that I frequent, who really want to talk about stuff. Cause I told them about it and mentioned it in a very vague sense. So yeah, just keep an eye out on that. And, if you enjoyed what you listened to, you don't feel obligated to, but you're more than welcome to, follow us on, Spotify, iTunes. You can subscribe on YouTube. It's completely up to you guys. We just enjoy your guys' company, and we hope that you join us along on this ride.
Because again, regardless of whether you listen or don't, we're going to be doing this. So we'll be here.
We're just going to keep having fun, and if people want to join the ride with us, then hey, that's awesome. So, all right, guys. So this has been the Comics with Friends podcast, the bi-weekly podcast where two best buds get together. They talk about a comic that they've read, talk about what they love, what they don't like. and joke about flying babies.
Yeah. It was just so off the wall.
So yeah, you guys take care of yourself and have a great rest of the week, rest of the day, rest of the month, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.